versus Beard.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Ms. Gardner, it is my understanding, and this is some sort of convoluted arrangement for the purchase of a truck. You purchased a truck from Mr. Beard. You claim that he took the truck back. You want all the payments that you made to him on the truck returned to you. In addition, you say he took a dirt bike that belonged to, I think, your son.
Correct.
And he sold it. You want the money for the dirt bike. Mr. Beard has a whole different scenario about what happened with this truck and dirt bike. So let me make it simple for myself. You knew each other. You were friends?
Yes.
Okay, good. That's all I have to know. I don't need to go into the social history. I'm really not interested. You had a truck.
Yes, ma'am.
What was the year and make of the truck?
It was a 1992 Ford F-150 stick shift single cab pickup truck.
Okay. And you were in need of a vehicle. So you agreed to purchase the truck from Mr. Beard. When?
We made an agreement, I think it was around September or August.
What was the date?
It was August 12th. It was the
Okay.
same day I bought my new green truck.
Does that sound right?
That's not correct. It was before he bought his truck.
It was before you
Yeah,
bought
we were
his truck.
actually at a
Just a second.
gathering.
How much before he bought the truck?
I think it's about a week or two.
Fine. And you gave him how much down?
It was $500.
So far, we agree on that?
No, ma'am.
How much did she give
She
you?
actually gave me nothing when I gave her the truck originally.
No, I have a copy of it. I have two counts of
But she
checks
did,
here.
in fact, give you money.
She did, yes.
How much did she give you at first?
At first, $500 check.
And when was that?
I received both checks of $500 increments by November 16th.
And did she have the truck prior to that?
Yes, ma'am.
When did she take possession of the truck?
Actually, a couple days after my original date, August 12th, that I gave her the truck.
So, according to her, it was the beginning of August. So you got possession. Listen to me, Miss Gardner. You got possession of the truck the beginning of August.
I have a check dated 8/14 of '06 for $500.
Fine. He says that you got possession of the truck before you gave him the check.
I'm not sure of the exact date, but that's probably close.
Fine. So let's say August 1st, you got possession of the truck. August 14th, you gave him $1,000.
I gave him $500 on 8/14 of '06 and another $500 on 10/13/06.
When were you supposed to give him the money?
We did not have a specific agreement. He said that I could pay him on it as I was able to.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am, that is.
Okay. So he was a nice guy. August, you gave him a check for $500. October, you gave him another check for $500, leaving a balance of?
It was about $1,100. I'd also given him $100 cash, $100 cash.
Forget about the cash.
Yeah.
So you
it'd
gave
be
him $1,000, leaving a balance
It'd
of
be $1,400.
$1,500. Don't play with
Not
me.
including the $100 that I gave him.
Not including the $100.
Right. Correct.
In cash. You give him checks and then you give him cash?
Yep.
So you owed him $1,500. And you've already had the truck 4 months.
Yep.
Well, when were you supposed to complete the payments on this truck?
We had actually come up with the money, and we called him. My fiance Robin called him and said, "We have the rest of the money for the truck. Would you like us to go ahead and bring it to you?"
When was this?
This was later, after we found out that I'd asked him, I said, "Can I sell the truck to someone else? It's not working out for me." And he
No,
said,
just a
"Fine, no problem."
Just a second. Starting November, you've made no further payments. When did you call him and tell him you wanted to sell the truck?
It was approximately February 15th is when we called to offer him the rest of the money, so it had been about 2 weeks before that, so about February 1st.
So if you had the truck August, September, October, November, December, and January, 6 months.
Correct. I was also
Just a second.
making repairs on it.
I don't care whether you were making it. You were using it. Who was supposed to make repairs on it, Bird? You bought a truck that's 15 years old. 15 years old.
Yeah.
And you bought it for $2,500. You've had the truck now 6 months. You've paid less than half on it. And now, according to you, you call him up sometime in February.
Yeah.
And say to him, truck's not working out for me. Is that what you just said? I want to sell it. So, before you can sell something, you have to pay for it.
Well, I asked him, I said, I need to sell the truck. Is it okay if I go ahead and sell it to someone else and I'll give you the money that I owe you? He said, no problem, that's absolutely fine. Let me know when you have a buyer. And he had a friend of his that was also interested in the truck. So he came to my home and picked up the truck to show his friend.
When did he come to your home to... Shh, just a second. Yeah. When did he come to your home to pick up the truck?
It would have been sometime around between February 1st and February 15th, that 2-week period.
Okay, go ahead. Keep going.
So after that, he picked up the truck, took it to his home, and he said that he had a buyer for it, and no problem, I'll give you the $1,100 that you paid me on it, and no big deal. During that time, he had offered to pick up my son Zachary's dirt bike from the shop that I had taken it to. It was probably going to run me about $600 or $700 to get it fixed. And Andrew was very mechanically inclined and said, hey, let me pick it up. I'll take it to the house, fix it for Zachy, no problem. So that's
And?
what happened with the truck. So he fixed it, and I was calling him saying, hey, I need to get the bike back for Zach and this and that. No return phone calls, text messaging, no return text messages, nothing. So on February 15th, he had possession of the truck. We called him and said, we have the rest of the money. Let's go ahead and we'll give you the money for the truck and just be done with it. You know,
You'll have a chance in a minute. Stop raising your hand. It's annoying and it's distracting. Go ahead.
I said, we'll just give you the rest of the money for the truck, you know, let's just get it done, you know. And then after that, it was February 25th, I called and I talked to him about, or I sent him a text message and phoned him saying, I'm coming by to get Zachary's dirt bike. And at that time, he sent me a text message saying that he sold it, which I don't know how he could sell a dirt bike that he didn't have the title to without it being a legal transaction. So the bike at no point in time was ever collateral for that truck. He was doing me a favor. Actually, he's doing Zachary a favor in fixing the dirt bike. We never had an agreement that it was collateral.
So what do you want?
I want the money that I gave him for the $1,100 for the truck, and I want the money for the dirt bike to replace the dirt bike for my kid.
Well, so that means that you used his truck for 7 months. You used it, you put mileage on it, you did whatever you had to do. You used his truck for nothing?
Well, yeah. I mean,
Why?
I don't, the truck is, it would be nice to get that money back. I want to replace my son's dirt bike.
Just a second. Well, I'm trying to understand, madam. You purchased something, you didn't finish paying for it, you used it for 7, 8 months, and now you want the money back that you gave him, which was less than half of the amount of the truck. I mean, let's break it down.
The reason I'm asking for that is because he said, hey, no problem, when I sell the truck or you sell the truck, when you find a buyer for it, I'll give you the money back. No big deal.
You know, I'm going to listen to him, but you know why I question what you say to me?
Why?
Because you told me that on February 1st, you called him and you said, truck's not working out, right? And you said, I had the money, because February 15th, you called and said to him, listen, let me come by and give you the money for the truck.
I actually didn't have the balance of the money until February 15th.
How were you getting the balance of the money?
My fiance, Robin,
Yes, your fiancé Robin was what?
giving me the money. He
Well,
was
why
gonna pay
couldn't he give
Andrew.
you the money February 1st? Why didn't you say to him, let me come by and pick up the truck, and say to him, no, I'm going to have the balance of the money in 2 weeks, and then I'm going to sell the truck.
Well, I know that Robin had tried to call several times and offer that, and I wasn't present during all of those conversations.
No way. Baloney.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
After I repossessed it, the tailgate was smashed, my bed liner was scratched, the side of the truck. It was very apparent that they were bitter about me taking the truck and
You have
smashed it.
pictures of it?
And later today,
She asked me to watch her dog when she went upstairs to put the mail away. I was playing with the dog outside. The dog went under my leg. The leash wrapped around my ankle and I tripped and I fell on top of the dog.
Allison Gardner claims former friend Andrew Beard repossessed a truck he sold her. She is suing for the return of payments made and for the cost of a dirt bike he sold without her permission.
Okay. Now, Mr. Beard,
Yes, ma'am.
let's hear it, sir.
Well,
And then
first off,
who's this person?
this is my girlfriend, Danielle.
Okay, because she's been dying to tell me something. I'm going to let her talk in a minute. Go
Even
ahead.
here, she was living
Go
with
ahead.
a guy in Reno.
Okay, well, first off, her
Just a
dates are
second.
way off.
Do not interrupt him. Do you understand? Perfect.
Her dates are actually incorrect on just about everything, unfortunately, except for when I did take the truck back. That was correct. Beginning of February, I actually brought my roommate, Sheindlin, at the time. But regarding the phone call with Robin, I was actually called when I took the truck back, and I believe he actually did ask me to pay $500 right then, which he said he would give me a
Why
check.
did you go and take the truck back, sir?
Because at that
Look
point...
at me. Don't look down
Okay. At that point in time, I'd found out that Rob was driving the truck, who unfortunately had 3 DUIs and should not have
That's
been driving.
him.
Yes, ma'am.
there. Put your hand down.
And which I do have a police report for. And on top of that, I hadn't received money. I had been trying to call her and get the money. I was sick. I got injured in a rodeo. Told her many
When
times
for the
I
first
needed
time
it.
did you ask her for the money? After October?
It was actually after the first payment of $1,000 it's actually before December. Between November and December, I'd been asking her multiple times that I needed
And
money.
what was her excuse for not giving it to you?
Well, the few times that she actually did call me back, it was she just didn't have it. She wasn't working. She was working a different job. Rob was trying to work to get the money, but he had to pay off for classes for his DUIs and just was not able to get the money.
Just a minute. Okay, so you went to pick up the truck because you were repossessing it.
Yes, ma'am.
Title had never passed, I assume.
No, ma'am.
You had ownership of the
Yes,
truck
ma'am.
until it was paid off.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, tell me about the dirt bike.
The dirt bike was actually given to me in end of August, and I was supposed to repair it, like she had said. That was correct. And it actually was staying at my house because with her house she was renting, it just was cluttering up her garage, and I was still working on it, which was fine. And by the time the truck transaction was starting to go south, I had informed her I'd feel more comfortable if it stayed at my house until it was sold as collateral, and she did agree upon that, and it was considered just to stay at my house, and I was going to fix it and had every intention on giving it back if my truck was either fully paid off or given back to me in the condition I had given it to them.
Okay, so you took the truck back.
Yes, ma'am.
First thing, let me tell you, Mr. Beard, she's not getting the money back for the truck. She used your truck. She did not fulfill your contract. She is not entitled to any money back. It's not as if she took it and had it for one day. She took it and used it, and he drove it. No question in my mind, he drove it. My concern is with this bike. So now you have the truck. Did you sell the truck?
No, ma'am, I traded it.
You traded it for
It
what?
was hard selling it because when I had taken the truck back, it was at my house. I was in the process of repairing it, which it extensively needed, and they had came to my house when I was in Chico on business, called me, quickly left a message saying, I'm picking up the truck, I'm leaving my car for you, before I even could call them back and said, that's not acceptable, I'm working on this
What do you mean they're
truck."
leaving their car for you?
They just said they would leave her car with the keys. I had no idea. By the time I got back home, there was her car with keys under the tire and my truck gone.
What kind of car did you leave?
A 99 Infiniti G20.
What did you leave it for?
Andrew had known that I was going to use the truck to move. I was moving out of my house. It was
Oh, just a
at
second.
that
So
point in
you were
time.
using, just a second.
I picked up the truck and used it to move.
You picked up the truck to use it.
Yes.
When?
I don't know the exact date.
You know
but
the date?
He's,
Early
I don't.
February.
I'm horrible with
Early
dates.
February.
Early February,
Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
It was February. So she left her car and picked up the truck after you had repossessed it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, got it. When you say you traded it in, what did you trade it in for?
I traded it for a boat because I felt at that time I can get more money after repairing the boat than I could the truck. Because when I received the truck after she had taken it, after I repossessed it, the tailgate was smashed, my bed liner was scratched, the side of the truck. It was very apparent that they were bitter about me taking the truck and
You have
smashed it.
pictures of it?
I have pictures of how it looked. Unfortunately, I do not have pictures of how it looked after.
Well, why didn't you take pictures afterwards, sir?
Oh, I traded it as soon as it was messed up.
Well, then that's a problem that you have,
That was
sir.
my problem, yes, ma'am.
It certainly is a problem. Where's the dirt bike?
The dirt bike I sold after that, too.
Well, that was a mistake.
Yes, ma'am.
What year dirt bike was this?
She claimed it was a 2004 and that she had title.
You have the
I
title
have the
too?
title right here.
I'd like
It's
to
a-
see
Okay.
it.
It's an 04 Honda CRF 50.
Let me see. Okay. How much did you sell it for?
$550, which was totally going to cover the mud in my radiator, the damage to my tailgate, the smashed spark plugs, and the condition overall the truck was running.
I don't know what these things cost. I have no idea.
I actually have a blue book statement.
I'd like to see
okay.
it.
Yes, ma'am.
I also have an estimate from Roseville Cycle Center that would be
I'd
the
be-
replacement value as well
I'll
as...
use Blue Book.
It shows the retail and MSRP in 2004 of what that bike went for.
Okay. SRP in 2004 was $1,100. Retail now is $749, and the average trade-in was $562. But if she went to purchase it, at this point, she'd have to pay $750. Is that what I'm understanding from this?
Yes, in an excellent condition. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What was wrong with it when you gave it to him to fix?
My son had got water in the tailpipe when he was washing it, so it just needed to be cleaned out.
Is that right?
No, ma'am.
I didn't think so. Otherwise, why would he have?
I'm not very good with
Otherwise,
dirt
why
bikes,
would he
so I
have it?
don't know.
Otherwise, why would he have it since August? If all you had to do was just clean out the tailpipe.
It was running before that.
What had to be done with the bike?
The tailpipe did have to be cleaned out, the inside of the motor as well, because unfortunately it had smoke and oil burnout in it and mud, again, in the engine.
Fine. You shouldn't have sold her bike. Shouldn't have sold her bike. I understand your frustration, but you shouldn't have sold her bike. She doesn't get her $1,100 back, and she doesn't get what she's looking for, which was $2,700, because that's ludicrous. She gets $550, which is the trade-in value of the bike, and that's what you got for it.
Okay. Yes,
Right?
ma'am.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $550. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may
Oh,
step out.
excuse me. You were dying to say something. Is there anything that you were dying to say?
No, he covered it.
Perfect. Thank you.
When I got sick, I told them I needed the money,
We just had a different agreement than what's in his brain.
and they just had no feelings and no need to help me like I did them.
You know, it just was a he said, she said thing, and it got a little out of hand.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Munoz versus Melosadov. Step forward.
22-year-old Christina Munoz is suing her former friend, 21-year-old Erica Miloserdorf, for accidentally killing her Maltese puppy when she fell on her.
Miss Miloserdorf, you had a terrible accident with the plaintiff's puppy. You want to tell me what happened?
I went to visit the plaintiff in
Your
Vegas.
friends?
My friends for the weekend. And we were outside. She went to go get her mail. We took her little Maltese dog, Isis. And when we came back, she asked me to watch her dog, left me responsible to watch the dog when she went upstairs to put the mail away. I was playing with the dog outside. The dog went under my leg. The leash wrapped around my ankle, and I tripped and I fell on top of the dog. Unfortunately, it collapsed the dog's ribs and punctured the dog's lungs, and it died on the way to the hospital.
And you want her to pay
Yes.
the dog?
Yes.
And?
I don't think it's fair. It's an accident that happened. It's a responsibility that shouldn't have been left on me. I was watching it as a favor for her while she went upstairs.
You could have declined.
I could have, but I didn't because I didn't even think anything was going to happen.
Of course not. Let me ask you this question. What's your first name?
Erica,
Erica. How did you get to your friend's house?
I drove.
Let's say instead of the dog wrapping itself around your legs, you accidentally ran over her dog with your car.
It'd still be an unfortunate accident, but maybe then I'd feel responsible. But this is an accident. I accidentally fell and tripped over
You mean
the
it was a
dog.
double accident?
Yeah.
Well, you're responsible. You're walking this puppy on the leash. You're holding the puppy on the leash. It's your responsibility to see to it that the puppy doesn't entwine itself around your legs. You didn't mean for it to happen. You were trying to pay attention, I assume, but you didn't do a good enough job.
But it wasn't my responsibility.
It
though.
was your responsibility. You assumed the responsibility. Now, sometimes things happen that you have no control over. But in this case, you had control over it. It was due to your negligence that the puppy got entwined in your leg. The puppy can't think about that. You're supposed to think about it. I really am trying to explain it to you so that you'll understand it, because I don't think that you are a bad person. I just think that you are misguided. So I'm trying to give you guidance. How much was the puppy?
It was $14.99.
Did you replace her?
Well, we got a gift from my parents saying that we got a new Maltipoo. So it wasn't the full Maltese, it was the Maltese and the poodle.
They're cute.
They are cute. They are very cute. But, I mean, the Maltese was a purebred compared to now it's a half-breed, so.
Well, Maltese and poodles are wonderful little dogs because they have a great coat that you don't have to deal with as much,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And they don't yap as much.
No, she does not bark at all.
Right.
Yeah.
I had Maltese.
Aw.
I know. They bark all the time. All the time. Anyway, you owe the price of the dog, $1,499, judgment for the plaintiff. Are you still friends?
Probably not after this.
Well, you should be. It was an accident.
Yeah, it was an
It was
accident.
an accident. It's an accident that she was responsible for,
Yeah.
but it was still an accident.
Yes.
That's all. Thank you.
What is your excuse? You in the matter of Arbitration versus Wilson. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Thank you, Bert. Miss Arbitration, how long were you and the defendant together as a couple?
About 5.5 months.
Did he move in with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Where did you meet him?
I met him when I was finishing college in Kentucky. He then moved back with me to Minnesota.
Mr. Wilson, when you moved back with Miss Arbitration to Minnesota, what were you doing for a living, sir?
I got down there and I started work for DirecTV.
In what month did you move to Minnesota?
It was 2 days before Christmas.
So let's say January. And when did you get the job with DirecTV?
It was about a month after Christmas.
February?
Yes,
How long did you have the job?
until I come back to Kentucky
And when was that?
in the middle of March.
Well, then you weren't working very long, sir.
Right.
Who was supporting you?
My parents would send me money, help me out.
I'm talking about her. Was she supporting you?
It'd go either way. I had money too.
Where did you have money from?
My parents, like I say, they would send me money.
How old are you, Mr. Wilson?
I'm 23, I'll be 24.
If I let you.
I hope you'll let me.
All of these things, my questions have a reason, Mr. Wilson.
Okay.
This is your complaint. You foolishly, very foolishly, put a down payment on a truck or
Yes, Your
something
Honor.
for him. And there was an agreement that he was going to pay you back for it because he didn't have any what?
Transportation or money.
Because he didn't have any money.
Right.
Otherwise, he would have put the down payment on his own truck. So evidently his parents, because he acknowledges that you put the down payment on the truck for him, right? I read your papers. And if
Correct.
you had money of your own, then you wouldn't have needed money from her. You're smarter than you look, sir. Now, 2 weeks after you bought him this truck, he goes back to Kentucky to deal with
ma'am.
some legal issues, according to him, having to do with his child.
That ended up being
I'm
false.
speaking.
Excuse me.
And his child said, "Oh, Daddy, don't leave." So he decided to leave and dump you and go back to the mother of his child and his child, because he couldn't say no to his baby. And he kept your
Truck.
That's after 2 weeks.
Yes,
And how
ma'am.
much did you lay out?
$3,500.
You know, your looks are deceiving, sir. What?
$3,500, Your Honor.
No. There were also payments due on this truck.
Yes, Your Honor.
He moved back in the middle of March to
Kentucky.
Did he make the March payment on the truck?
No, ma'am, he did not.
She couldn't
I
get
see,
it.
shh, just a second. I see a whole lot of blank space on your table, Mr. Wilson. You say in your answer that you made the truck payments. You left, according to you, the second week in March. Show me the March payment that you made.
I ain't got no evidence of nothing. She come and got the truck without my knowledge, right in the middle of the
Listen
day.
to me. Listen to me. You have evidence, sir, because you would have proof that you made the truck payment in March.
Nothing was due. There was no payments due on that truck.
I have a
just had
check,
to
Your Honor.
I just had purchased. We just had purchased that truck. Like I say, we just had purchased
You mean
that
you
truck.
purchased it, they made you a gift?
No, it's not a gift. It wasn't. There was no payments due on it.
When was the first payment due?
Whenever we bought the truck, like 3 weeks before, and I hadn't had a chance to pay the payment on it because she come and got it.
You didn't have a chance.
Exactly.
Your Honor, I have a check for
I see
March.
it, please?
Yes, ma'am. My mother wrote it out of account that we had shared together, my mother and I, to make the payment. After he was delinquent on that payment, that's when we chose to go down there for the sake of my credit. and
Just
get
a
it.
second.
Yes, Your Honor.
We do this according to the way I run this playpen, okay? Check is dated the 21st of March, so I assume for $271.75. You don't have another check that you made, do you, sir? In March? No. Then you went down because he didn't make the payment. And very wisely, I might add, decided not to be involved with this man anymore, because now your credit is on the line because there are payments due on this car.
Yes, Your Honor.
So you and your mom, according to your papers, went down and repossessed the car
Yes.
and sold it.
Yes.
Sold it at a loss.
Yes.
And what you want is the money that you spent on him for this truck. How much did you sell the truck for?
Sold the truck for $10,500. Had $11.86 left on the truck to be paid.
All right, so what's the deficit?
About $1,300.
Okay. That's a cheap lesson. Now, when, Ms. Aubuchon, when you went down to repossess the truck, did you give him any notice that he had the opportunity to make up any of these?
Yes, Your Honor. I asked him if he would please return the truck to me. I even offered to buy him a plane ticket back to Kentucky from Minnesota if he would do that.
And what did he say to you?
He said, I'll do it, and then he would not call me back. I wouldn't be able to get a hold of him for several weeks at a time.
When did you first call him?
I called him.
Mr. Wilson, this smirk is irritating. Go ahead.
I was explaining this to him about a week after he left, once I realized that he would not be returning.
When he left to go to Kentucky,
Yes.
when did he notify you that he would not be coming back?
It was about a week after he left. He told me that he wasn't going to be coming back due to his baby and missing his family. At that point, I said, I'll give you the opportunity to make the truck payment. If you do not, it will be going against my credit as well, and I will have to retrieve the truck.
And when did you have the discussion with him?
That discussion with him was had about a week after he left, originally.
Which was when?
It would have been the very end of February, first week of March. I also have credit card charges, Your Honor, which would indicate when he returned back to Kentucky.
I'd like to see them, please. The second part of your claim is that he overdrew a joint checking account that you had. And quite frankly, I'm far more interested in that than this truck problem, because
Yes, Your
the
Honor.
truck was an unfortunate exercise for you.
Right.
You got most of your money back.
Right.
The $1,300 is probably a reasonable lesson that you'll never do it again.
Well, the
But
down
I'm-
payment I never got back.
The down payment you did get back, madam, when you sold it. If anything, there was one payment due. I mean, it was a wise thing for you to do. Otherwise, you would have been responsible for the whole thing. But no bank would have gone after him after
But I
a
gave
week.
him the opportunity to
No bank
pay
would
the...
have gone after him after a week. And in all probability, he would not have made these payments. There's no question he wouldn't have made these payments from a moral perspective. But from a legal perspective, if you own a car and you finance it, and if you're 4 days late with a payment, they do not come after you and repossess the car. They don't do it.
Right.
Let's hear about the money in your checking account.
Okay. We opened this joint checking account because I was supporting Mr. Wilson. I gave him a card of his own. Once he started making money, his checks were going to be directly deposited into that account so that we could pay bills together, so on and so forth. When he left, that account was emptied. I foolishly did not
just
close
a second.
it.
When he left, the account was emptied by you.
Yes, Your Honor.
And how much was in the account?
At the time, there was about $1,500 in the account.
Okay. And at the time, Mr. Wilson had been working for about a month.
Correct.
How much money did you put into the account, Mr. Wilson?
Probably about $700.
Okay, fine. And then, according to the plaintiff, Mr. Wilson, you made charges against her bank credit for $2,000. Why did you do that, sir?
I don't think I made that much.
Why did you make any?
I don't think I made about maybe $300, and I figured my money was in there.
Well, let's see how much money. How much money did he charge on the debit card?
I believe the total is about $2,300.
Not about. Figure it out, because then you're going to show it to Mr. Wilson. You need a calculator?
I may need a calculator. There's quite a bit.
Stand over next to her while she's adding this up so you save me a little bit of time, Mr. Wilson. Listen to me, Miss Arbitration.
Thank you. Yes, Your Honor.
Show him the charge, add it on the calculator. Press on.
Okay.
I know enough about the machine to know they have to press on.
This is the ladder. This is the advance for credit card for food and gas when you left town, food and gas in Kentucky, when you ordered stuff in order to set up your new business in Kentucky, more food and gas, and the Dell computer.
And what do we have as a total?
We have $2,130, I believe.
Looks like $16.05 on your computer.
This is wrong. That was the
Go,
difference.
step back over and don't be a smart mouth. Can I see it, please?
Sure.
Give me the computer. Let him stand right there next to you. Just,
Okay. So unless the decimal is in the wrong place, it should be about $1,595 that I've now added up. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now, Mr. Wilson, you've gone over those charges. That should be your computer in Kentucky, your business in Kentucky, the food and gas in Kentucky. Gone over those charges?
Yes.
Is that right? $1,595?
I don't think so.
Well, how much is it, sir? Here, just a second. Let's do... You add it.
I don't need no calculator. I mean, I really don't.
Now, listen to me. Then add it up in your head. Add it up in your head. What?
600.
No. Add up those figures, sir. Give the piece of paper to Smartmouth. Read over the figures that she just added, sir. Come on.
Well, at the time, you know, from Minnesota, Kentucky.
Listen. From Minnesota to Kentucky, give me the charges. Let's go.
Let me see your calculator then. This calculator ain't right.
Can I have the calculator, please? I've been using it for 11 years. Okay. Now, what I want you to do, Miss Arbitration, this is a challenge. I want you to say the charge, tell me what it was for,
Okay.
and the amount.
Okay. There was a ladder charged at Menards, $220.85.
Don't give me any change.
Okay.
Just round it out to the last
Yes,
dollar.
Your Honor.
$225?
Yep. Advance from credit card, $150. Skywalker Communications, $175. Food and gas in Kentucky, $50. Advance from credit card, $1,000. I'm sorry, I missed that originally. And the Dell computer, $807.
Where's the computer, sir?
I sent it back whenever she notified me about it.
Send it back to whom?
Dale, a long time ago.
Is there a credit?
I was never credited for that, Your Honor.
You owe her $2,407. You got it? Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,407. Listen, Miss Arbitration,
Yes,
you
Your
made
Honor.
a mistake.
Yes, Your Honor.
Don't make another mistake.
I won't, Your Honor.
Good. Thank you. That's
Thank
all.
you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Thought I was gonna steal my kid.
I was very surprised.
She was very upset.
The quickest I ever got over anyone.
Everybody messes up.
I will be more careful about my choices of partners in life.
You say she measured the door, too.
Yes.
Well, tell me about it.
As we measured the door,
Who's we?
her and I,
Were you there together?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, then you have a problem.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Castleberry versus Watson, step forward.
Carpenter Jeffrey Castleberry is suing his former boss, Megan Watson, for non-payment of services rendered. Megan says Jeffrey's work was substandard.
Mr. Castleberry, you worked for the defendant in her construction business. You quit over some social problem that you had. It seems that you were dating her sister. According to you, got into some sort of a kerfuffle with her sister and decided it would be best if you didn't work with her anymore.
Yes, ma'am.
So you quit. And you claim at the time that you quit, you were owed wages. Miss Watson seems to acknowledge that you were owed wages, but she said that you took some tools that belonged to her and didn't return them, but primarily that she went and examined the work that you had done and found it to be substandard, and she had to arrange to have that work done by somebody else, so she doesn't owe you any money. And she's counterclaiming for the tools and having to have the work redone. It's a little nonsense. Not the tools necessarily, but having to have the work redone is nonsense. When did he start to work for you?
About the middle of March of 2007.
And what was the financial arrangement that you had with him?
He got paid on the jobs once I got paid on the jobs. It was
Is
a
that how-
percentage of each job.
Is that how you were paid, sir, a percentage of each job?
I don't know if it's percentage. It was a set rate for each job. When she was paid for it, she would write me a check and she would attach one of these pay statements, which has the check number, the date, how much I was paid, which job it was, and what I did. And each time she gave, she would give, this was the first one and second, etc.
Okay, can I have it, please? And when did you quit, sir? On what date?
April 2nd.
So you only worked there a couple of weeks. Were you paid this last one, this
Yes.
pay statement, April 3rd?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were paid on this?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were paid on this?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's for all the time that you worked there?
That was for the other jobs, yes.
For the other jobs? Had you ever had a discussion with her about any work that you did while you were working for her that was unsatisfactory?
No, ma'am.
So any work that you did pursuant to that list that you had and work that you completed, you got one of these and you were paid for it?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Now, give me the figures on the work that you did that you were not paid for.
$355.
Okay. But he did do this $355 worth of work.
Yes, ma'am.
Then you owe him $355.
Yes, ma'am. There's another job that he did an estimate on for me, and per his estimate, the door was wrong. I had to pay someone else to correct the work that from where he estimated the door being wrong.
You mean he measured it wrong?
Yes, ma'am. It was too small.
Show him.
Mr. Moore's door. You measured and you said it was a 6-0 door. The rough opening on that door was...
Door that we both measured.
You measured that door.
We both
Just a
measured.
second. You said that you measured it and she measured it?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me about that.
As we measured the door,
Who's we?
her and I,
You were there together?
yes, ma'am.
Were you there together?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, then you have a problem. You're the construction boss.
Yes, ma'am.
So?
I did measure the door. I wrote the information down that he gave me and consulted
Were
with
you
the customer.
there?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, then you should have checked him a little bit better. You owe him $355. Now, are you angry with him for some reason?
Yes, ma'am.
Why?
Because he stole some of my tools, and I have
Okay.
the receipts for those.
Tell me what tools he stole.
I have a reciprocating saw that I purchased right here.
Do you
that
have
I
that?
no longer have.
No, ma'am.
Where is it?
I never had any of her tools. As a matter of fact, some of my tools were left at her parents' house, and after I quit, I asked if she could meet me up the street to get my tools. She let me get the tools out of the back of her truck, which was my saw, and I had a bucket with my tools in it. And she was present when I did that.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am, but I believe my tools were in his bucket because we worked out of the same truck.
Well, what do you mean you believe?
Because I no longer have my tools as of the day
Well,
I
is
gave
that what
him
makes
back
you think
his.
he has them?
Yes, ma'am.
It's not proof, Adam, of anything. Who is this?
This is my sister.
This is the one that you were dating?
Yes, ma'am.
Didn't work out?
No, ma'am.
Okay. You owe him $355. It didn't work out. You have to pay for the work. You know, it's not always a good idea to go to work for relatives.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, it tends to be messy. But, Miss Watson, what I have before me are statements of when he worked for you, what you paid him, and it appears that until there was this brouhaha with your sister, his work was fine. The only time that his work became unsatisfactory is when there was a problem. So I find that a little suspect. You have to pay him the $355 that you owe him. Judgment for the plaintiff. That's all. Thank you.
Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
Mr. Smith, the defendant was a friend of yours, and according to your complaint, you rented a car to her, a car that was registered and titled in your name, that you weren't using. You felt sorry for her, that she needed transportation. You told her she could rent it for $20 a day. It is your claim that she owes you for the rental, as well as some damage that she did to the car. Mr. LaSalle says she owes you nothing. How many cars do you rent out, Mr. Smith?
Well, I've never rented out. The proposition was I wanted to sell it to her. It was her idea to rent it.
And when did you have this conversation?
This was March 22nd in the afternoon. It was like after 1 or 2 p.m.
What kind of car is it?
It's a 1987 Cadillac Eldorado Barrett's. It's like
So
the
it's a
top-of-the-line model for that year. And it's
Well,
in good
top of the
shape.
line. I was a top of the line model in my year too, sir, but this car is now 20 years old.
It's in good running order. It's in good shape. I only had like 92,000 miles on it.
I'm in good shape too, but
I
I'm
can
still
tell.
what I am. You know what I'm talking about?
I can tell.
20-year-old car is a 20-year-old car.
20-year-old car by like 2 owners. It was in
I'm not
good
telling
shape.
you how old I am, and I've only had 2 owners. That still doesn't change anything. You understand?
I understand.
What?
What? I'm supposed to say here.
Mr. Smith, I'm not saying anything bad about your car. I'm just saying it's an old car, sir.
It's an old car,
It's not an antique, it's just an old car.
but it's a Cadillac. That's
Me
different.
too. Listen, so what did you decide to do on March 22nd between 1 and 2 in the afternoon
Well,
with your
I
vintage car?
I gave defendant my phone number. She said she called me back, talk it over with her friend. She called me back in about a half hour and said, yeah, let's do a deal.
Let's do a deal.
Yeah.
What do you mean, let's do a
Well,
deal?
she proposed to rent it. I proposed to sell it. She said she couldn't afford to buy it, so I said...
How much did you want it for?
$20. I wanted $700.
Wanted $700 for the car.
That's all I wanted. She agreed, and I agreed we'll rent it for $20 a day. She went home to talk to her friend. I went home to download a rental car agreement off the internet. I had the paperwork downloaded. I picked them up, and she gave me $20 for the first day. We signed the paperwork. I
Let me
gave
see
her
the
the keys.
paperwork. So you just wanted the car for a week, madam?
No, ma'am.
Did you sign this agreement?
Yeah, when I met Barry on the 22nd,
Yeah.
he told me he had cars for rental, 3 cars. I told him I had to talk to my girlfriend and that I would call him back. I did that. We went to go look at the cars. I rented 1 car.
It says here that you're renting this car, and it says what car it is, from March 22nd to March 29th.
He did all the receipts. I also have those. But I wanted to purchase the car. It wasn't rental. And I started renting because I was not working at the time.
All I asked you was, you were supposed to return this vehicle on March 30th. That's what you signed. That's your name.
Yeah, I
There.
signed that.
Did you return the car on March 30th?
No, I did not.
Why not?
Because I made more payments towards the car. I was buying the car from him.
Did you have a subsequent agreement?
No, we kept doing the rental contracts. But I would pay him more than the $20 a day going towards the purchase of the car.
Show me. First of all, how long did you keep the car?
Until April 14th.
You kept it for an additional 2 weeks. Okay. Go ahead, sir.
That's not correct, Your Honor. She took 2 rental agreements out. She didn't bring the car back. I had to go to her to get the payments and check on the car because she had moved like 15 miles from me. It began like, she was paying me like 3 days in a row. She paid me. At the beginning of the first contract, she paid me the $20.
How many days did she keep the car, sir?
She had the car like 22 days, from the 22nd of March to the...
14th of April.
Right.
22 days. And let's do this so that I don't make a mistake. 22 times 20 equals $440. So that's what she should have paid you.
That's correct.
And that's what you would like, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
How much did you pay him?
I paid him more than the receipts that he has given.
How much do you claim that you paid him?
Can my witness come up here?
No! How much do you claim that you paid him?
Almost $600 for the car that was supposed to be bought for $700.
$600.
Almost $600.
Almost $600.
Good. And how many receipts do you have, and how much do they total?
$420.
Let me see them, please. I have $400.
If you look, there might be one with the same date and same amount on it. I think I accidentally wrote 2 receipts for one payment.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think it's
This
the
is
one
a
for
different one.
$80.
This
One
is
is
a
the
different
white-
one.
yeah.
Right, I'm deducting $80 because it covers the same period
Right.
from 4-3.
I accidentally gave her the wrong
Absolutely
copy
right.
and everything.
Absolutely right. Minus 80, because she gave me a duplicate, equals 320, and she was supposed to give you 440. Ms. LaSalle, that's what you got. You gave him $320.
Can I speak, Your Honor?
Sure.
He just wrote out receipts. When he came to pick up the vehicle, he went home and just wrote out receipts. The only one receipt that me and Barry had actually made was the yellow receipt. So he just made up receipts for whatever he wanted to make out the receipts. I had the car almost paid for.
Just a second. Almost is not good enough. The only proof, and it's proof that you gave me of what you paid for, are these. That's what you gave me. And it says that you're $120 short. What else, sir?
Friday the 13th, she said, come pick up the car. The car's all empty, it's at her house. She was supposed to bring the car back. So I get a friend of mine, we go up to Jeannie's house, get the car, and I said, when are you gonna have my money? She said, next Friday. We took off, went home. I called her the following Friday. She's not gonna pay me my money, I'm not gonna get any money. So I gave her another week, the 27th, which is the day I filed the lawsuit. Jeannie, am I gonna get my money? You ain't getting nothing, do what you gotta do. And that's when I went to the courthouse. The night while I was driving it back, like I said, it's 15 miles from her house to my house, the front end was shaky. It's a front-wheel drive car, and it's dark. It's like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. I couldn't see anything, so the next morning, I went out and inspected the car. The right front tire is very low. I take it to a mechanic, have him look at it and get new tires, and they gave me an estimate of what the damages was because the front end suspension was damaged. I got damages on the car. The car wasn't brought back in the same state that I gave it to her. And it
Fine.
was,
You wanted to sell the car, sir, for $700. Listen to me.
I wanted to
You-
sell it.
Shh. Look at me. You wanted to sell the car for $700.
correct.
You're going to get $440 for her. Use of the car. You're a couple of $100 short of what you wanted to sell it for. Where is the car now?
I have the car.
Do you drive it?
Yeah, I drive it.
Do you rent it to other people?
No, I don't.
But you use it yourself.
Yes, I do.
So look at what you have. You wanted to sell the car for $700. You're going to get $440, which means that you're just a few dollars off from what you wanted to sell it for, and you have your car. Isn't that great?
Sounds good.
Be happy. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $120, which is what she owes you. Thank you very much. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Do you need a shawl?
No.
Did you get confused as to where you were going today?
No.
That's the way you think you should go to court?
No.
And later today,
Why didn't you take care of it?
I didn't feel I had to.
Standing here today, do I change your mind, sir?
No.
Well, then you're an idiot.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Schmidt versus Commissara. Step forward, please.
19-year-old Alicia Schmidt is suing her former friend, 19-year-old Stephanie Commissara, for unpaid babysitting fees. Stephanie says it's Alicia's own fault that she didn't get paid.
Do you need a shawl?
No.
Did you get confused as to where you were going today?
No.
That's the way you think you should go to court?
No.
She actually allowed you to babysit for her children?
Her child, yes.
Anyway, you claim she owes you for some babysitting. She says that the state was supposed to pay you, but you didn't fill out the appropriate paperwork. That's your defense, right?
Yeah, she filled it out, but
She filled it out wrong? I could believe
it
that.
never went through.
So your agreement was she was going to babysit for your child and she was going to get paid by the state because you were doing some work there?
I was working at Sunoco, and
What is that?
It's a convenience
What-
store.
Station.
What were you doing at the store?
Cashier,
How much were you earning?
$7.25.
An hour?
Yeah,
And how much were you bringing home every week?
Between 200 and 250.
And who else were you living with?
Just me and my son.
Were you paying rent?
Yes.
How much?
$219.
In an apartment?
Yes.
Where do you come from?
Buffalo, New York.
Isn't it cold in Buffalo?
It's getting warmer.
Now, how long did you watch the baby?
Huh? Sorry.
How long did you watch the baby?
For a month and a half.
Is that what you do for a living, babysit?
No.
Well,
I
what
did
do you
it because me and her have been friends since we were like 12, 13 years old, and to help her out.
Well, the state didn't pay you. So did you tell her that you thought she should pay you?
Yeah, I did. And I told her when she got her taxes back this year to give me money out of her taxes for that, and then I would leave it alone, and she didn't do that.
Did you get money back from your taxes?
Yes.
How much did you get?
$750 around.
Did you think you should give your friend some money?
I never told her I was going to pay her.
Well, you told her that she was going to get paid for watching your son.
Not out of my money.
Well, she's going to get paid out of your money. You got paid. She wasn't doing this as a favor. She was doing it because she expected to get paid. And if the state didn't pay her for some reason and you did not follow up, which I assume you didn't, is that right?
I called many times to try and see why it wasn't coming.
And so
We
did
both
you
did.
Did you get an answer?
My case was being closed at the time.
So you didn't get an answer.
Nope.
So now you have to pay her.
Why would I pay her when I never said anything about paying her?
I just tried to explain it to you, and I want you to try to put on your listening ears. She was babysitting for your child for money. The state was supposed to pay her. She filled out the forms according to what you told me.
Mm-hmm.
You said you called many times. You didn't get an answer as to why they weren't paying her. And then you stopped calling because you were closing your welfare case. That doesn't mean she doesn't get paid because she did the work for you. So you have to pay her. Do you understand?
Yeah. I mean...
And you got back $750 in your taxes. So you're going to get paid, but you're not going to get paid $2,000 because that's ridiculous. You didn't earn $2,000 probably a whole year. But you have to get paid something for the work that you did, judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $350. That's all. Thank you.
Parties are
Thank you.
excused. You may step out.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Fisher versus Wolf. Step forward, please.
25-year-old Rayanne Fisher is suing her ex-boyfriend, Brandon Wolf, for writing a bad check on a shared bank account.
Miss Fisher, this young man used to be your boyfriend and you actually lived together. You made the mistake because you didn't listen to Mother of opening up a joint bank account with him while you were living together. And after you broke up, he wrote out a check. There was no money in the account, but there was evidently one of those privileges that allows you to write checks even though you don't have money in the account, and you were forced to pay the check because there was no money in the account. And you wanted to pay the money back plus whatever fees were charged to you. Mr. Wolf has an interesting defense and an interesting counterclaim. First, let's discover when you broke up. Date.
The date was July 11th of '06.
And when did you write out this check?
I don't actually have the actual date of it.
But I'm sure you do.
Yes, I do. July 16th of '06.
After the bloom was off the rose, right? And at the time, Mr. Wolf, were you aware of the fact that there was no money in the account?
Yes, I was.
So tell me why you did that, sir.
I
First tell me why you did it. Then tell me why you don't think you're responsible to pay her back the money for it. And then we'll get to your counterclaim.
Okay. I set up with the finance company to where it was a post-dated check.
For what?
For a down payment on my Jeep.
So you gave the finance company a post-dated check.
Yes.
And?
And I had plans on putting the money in the account within the 2 weeks of my next paycheck.
Yes.
By that time, she had already paid this off.
Well, they had to have deposited the check. What do you mean, Mr. Wolf? I want you to try to clear out the fuzzies in your brain. If you had put the money in the account before they cashed the check, there would be no problem. She wouldn't have known anything, right? So you didn't put the money in the account.
No.
Or the finance company cashed the check before they were supposed to.
Correct.
Well, which one is it? I gave you two choices. They can't be both correct.
They actually cashed the check before the post date.
Well, so the bank probably shouldn't have done that, right?
Right.
But you had the money.
Right. It was a misunderstanding.
Fine, so why didn't you give Miss Fisher back the money? Since you had the money, let me give it to you this way. You had the money That's what you told me.
Right.
You were going to put it in the bank.
Correct.
Your finance company for your truck deposited the check early. That's what you're telling me.
Correct.
But you had the money. What's your first name?
Rayanne.
Say to Rayanne, Rayanne, I'm sorry, this was all a misunderstanding. I have the money. I'm going to give you back the money. I want you to be whole. Why didn't you give her back the money?
Well, what happened is on my Jeep, I ended up getting it repoed from me.
What month?
It was August, I think.
So we're talking about now in July. July, you had the money
Right.
to pay the down payment, so why didn't you just give it to Rayanne, who paid the overdraft protection on the truck?
I never asked her to pay it.
Who cares? You had it. Why didn't you take care of it?
I didn't feel I had to.
Standing here today, do I change your mind, sir?
No.
Well, then you're an idiot. You the girlfriend?
I'm the fiance.
Fiance. I think twice about making babies with him. Listen! Your debt, your problem. You had the money.
Right.
I also don't believe that a finance company takes a post-dated check and allows you to take a car. That is a lot of who shot John. So, now that I've already determined that you owe her the money, how much money does he owe you?
$592.90.
$592.92. That's what you owe her. Now I am prepared, sir, to listen to your counterclaim.
What happened is I was in the hospital for a week, and one of my payments fell through on my Jeep.
Another payment fell through.
Yes.
Like an accident looking to happen.
They sent a tow truck to her house.
To whose house?
Rand's house.
Why would they think it's at her house?
Because it was registered under the address.
So the tow truck came to the house and said, where's the truck? Go ahead.
She brought the tow truck over to my sister's house, had it towed, sat in...
No. She didn't have anything towed.
Oh. She brought the tow truck over to my sister's
They
house.
said, where is this car?
Right.
And she said, it's not here. Maybe it's at his sister's house. I'll show you where that is. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So
correct.
what?
She sat in the parking lot also, took pictures, sent them to me on my phone, and also put them up on her MySpace page.
So what? So what?
I didn't feel that was right.
Maybe she would have felt more kindly if she wasn't out $600 for your truck while you're fooling around with your new fiancé. Do you understand? One
Yes,
good
ma'am.
turn deserves another. Your counterclaim's dismissed. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $592.92. Thank you.
Parties are accused. You may st- That's case number 136 on the calendar in the matter of Bone versus Howard. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Mr. Bone, your car was vandalized after a party that was held at the defendant's house.
Yes, ma'am.
It was, I assume, your 18th birthday party?
Yes.
You're the brother? And you believe that Mr. Howard, who permitted this party to be had in his house, is responsible for the damage to your car.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Howard, while sympathetic that your car was damaged, says that the people who damaged your car were uninvited guests, uninvited thugs at the party, and you should pursue them for damaging your car. Stand up, please, next to your dad. Mr. Howard, you were not home at the time of this party, is that right?
Yes.
Where were you?
I was at work.
And this was on a Friday evening?
Yes, it was, Your Honor.
What date?
December 15th, 06.
And when is your birthday?
December 20th.
So the party wasn't held on your birthday?
No, because there was school, so couldn't do it on a school night.
All right, Mr. Bone, were you an invited guest at this party?
Yes.
You were there with your girlfriend?
Yes, ma'am.
That's this young lady?
Yes.
What time did you arrive at the party?
About 7:30, ma'am.
Had you ever been to the Howard house before?
Yes, ma'am.
Does your girlfriend live close by?
It's the next door neighbor, ma'am.
Stand up. How long have you and Haley been friends?
I'd say since about 5th grade.
So you were invited to the party?
Yes, ma'am.
How long did you stay at the party, Mr. Bone?
Approximately half an hour.
Why did you leave after a half an hour?
There wasn't too many people that we know, and there was a lot of alcohol there, so we decided we were going to go back to Jessica's house.
How many people were there?
Probably 40 to 50 people.
Is that right?
Yes, I'd say that's about right.
Mr. Howard, how many people did your daughter tell you were going to be at this party?
Maybe about 15, 20 people that I was aware of.
Now, when you got there and there were 40 to 50 people at the party, you say that there was alcohol. Tell me about where the alcohol was set up.
It really wasn't just set up. It was kind of a bring-your-own thing. It was pretty much spread out through the entire house.
How many people did you know at the party?
About 6 to 7 people that I actually had known.
And how many people did you know?
I knew about 10 to 15.
And how old were the people that you knew?
The people that I knew were 17 or 18, and they were all in high school. The others, I didn't know.
Of the 17 and 18-year-olds there, were any of them drinking?
Of the ones that I knew, a couple of them were, and the ones that I was hanging out with were not.
And what about you, Mr. Bone? Of the people that you knew?
Those were the same people that
Same
she
people, and they were?
drinking. The ones that we had left with went back to her house with us. It was four others that went back with us, and they left shortly after that.
So it's 7:30, and you stayed for a half hour until about 8 o'clock. When you left, some people went with you.
Yes.
Were the people that went with you people who were or were not drinking?
Were not.
Were not. Is the reason that you left early because of the number of people that were there?
I left early because I didn't feel comfortable being that I didn't know half of the people that were there and the amount of alcohol that was there. I just did not feel comfortable.
Did you speak to Haley about the number of people that were there?
I did not speak to her about the number of people.
What did you speak to her about?
About the alcohol.
What did you say to her, and what did she say to you?
I told her that having the alcohol there, being that she's underage, was not a good idea, since my father, who lives right next door, is a cop.
And what did Haley say to you?
She didn't really say much, just that it would be okay, nothing bad would happen.
You remember that conversation?
Yeah, I do.
You want to explain that to me?
Well, I didn't think it would be a big problem because we knew, well, I knew some of the people. There was other people that just came with their friends that I didn't know. And everything was cool for the time we were there, so I didn't think there would be a problem.
All right, Mr. Bones, so tell me what happened with your car.
Well, after we had left the party, we went to Jessica's house, and we received a call about, I don't know, 11 o'clock, I would say, saying that there had been a fight at Haley's house and that they needed help breaking it up. So me and her father, Ron, went outside, and we seen people fighting around my car and various places in the yard. And after he had broken it up, I walked around my car and seen that the mirror was laying on the ground next to the car, and there was a bunch of mud on the window and on the door and on the fender and on the trunk of my car. And,
what time was this?
Probably 11 o'clock.
Okay. How did that happen?
There was a fight. There's a total of 2 fights, and that last one that happened, a bunch of people had left. They were the ones that we told to leave, and they came back.
Those people that you told to leave, had they been there earlier in the evening when they were there?
Not all of them.
But some of them?
Yes.
And so you told them to leave?
Yes, and they were not invited back. And there was just a few people that were left, like around 10, and then they were all there, and all these guys came back, and they had brought more people with them. And then we seen the trucks and the vehicles coming down the road, and people ran to the door to see what was going on, and we saw they were back. People went outside to see them, and I guess the fight broke out. I ran upstairs to call Jessica's dad, the cop, because I knew something bad was going to happen. And I didn't want no one to get hurt, like, seriously.
Did you know the names of any of the people that were out there and involved in this fight?
Some of them I did. Others I did not.
Did you tell the police their names?
I didn't really get a chance to talk to the police very much, actually. I told them what had happened, and then that was pretty much it.
Well, his car was damaged.
Right. I wasn't even downstairs, because it happened in the basement, and I was upstairs. I stayed in my room because I'm not dumb enough to go back downstairs. There was a bunch of guys fighting.
Anything else you want to tell me?
No.
Anything you want to tell me?
Yes. The night of the party, I was chaperoning it. When I showed up, a few people had already brought alcohol.
What time did you show up?
Around 8 p.m. There was already a few kids there, a few adults there.
Just a second. Sorry. Your first name is?
Tim.
How old are you, Tim?
31.
Tim, first of all, you should have been there at 7:30, not 8 o'clock. That's number one.
I wasn't actually told to be there.
I don't care what you were told. If your father was relying on you as the adult to chaperone the party, by the time these people got there at 7:30, there were already 40 to 50 people there. So if you arrived at 8 o'clock, you got there too late.
We didn't get on the same page, but I showed up at home at 8 o'clock that evening, and it was going on.
Oh, just a second. So that you were not asked to chaperone the party.
I was asked to chaperone, but we didn't, somehow he didn't mention to me that it was going to be that day.
Ah, perfect. Mr. Howard, this is not looking good for you, sir. I want you to understand that. Are you getting the fact that this is not looking good for you?
Yes, Your Honor, I do.
I'm going to hear the rest of the scenario from your son, but this is not looking good for your team.
Right.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I show up around 8 o'clock in the evening. There's about 15 people there. 3 of them already had alcohol with them. They were already drinking. So I checked their IDs. I made them go downstairs with the people that were over 21 to play pool. Everyone else that was under stayed upstairs. I stayed down there with them for a while. Every once in a while I walked upstairs, checked on some people. I let Haley watch everybody else upstairs. I didn't notice anybody drinking up there. When I went back downstairs, I was watching people playing pool. Shortly after that, within a half hour or so, about 50 or 60 people just barreled in the door. I knew I couldn't handle all these people.
Let me explain something to you.
Yes.
These people came to a party at 7:30. This young lady has been a friend of your sister since the 5th grade. These people tell me that the reason that they left at 8 o'clock was because there were 40 to 50 people there at the party.
That wasn't until
So
about 10
I'm
o'clock.
speaking. Many of whom they didn't know, and there was underage drinking there. Now, they were coming to a party that day. She was coming there because she was a friend of your sister's. So who do you think I'm going to believe? The people that left at 8 o'clock because they felt so uncomfortable there that they left a party and they took 4 people with them? Or you think I'm going to believe you, who was downstairs watching some people play pool? Do you get it? You get
Yes, I
where I'm
do.
going?
Yes,
Sit
I do.
down. Now, Mr. Howard,
Yes, ma'am.
you have 30 seconds to tell me why this isn't your responsibility.
I feel I'm just as much of a victim as Mr. Bone here because of the fact that I've got property damage, which I have some pictures to show
I
you.
couldn't care less about your property damage. You brought that on yourself.
Okay. I don't know who these people were. They were uninvited and they just showed up with bats and...
How old are you?
I'm 54.
They didn't show up with bats, sir. They were at the party, many of them. During the course of the evening, they were thrown out of the party and they went and they got more people to come back with them. But some of the same people, according to your daughter, because she first said she knew who some of them were, and then she said, well, I don't know, I was in my room, I didn't want to go. She knew the names of some of them who came back. They just came back with more people. Now, you were working Friday night?
Yes.
Do you work Saturday night?
Yes.
Do you work Sunday night?
No.
Then that's the day you should have had the party. Not on a night when you're not going to be home. If you choose to allow your teenage daughter to have a party in her house, and you believed her, which is the first mistake with regard to a teenager to begin with, right? That they're going to have a handful of people, 15 people, that turns into 40 or 50, and you don't make adequate arrangements for supervision, which clearly you didn't make because according to your son, you had discussed this party but hadn't made any definitive plans for him to chaperone it. That's what you told me.
I wasn't clear at the time.
You open your house to teenagers and you're not there, you're going to be responsible for anything bad that goes on in that house. Fortunately, it was just his car that got damaged. But if somebody had been sexually molested in your house, some 17-year-old, you wouldn't have a house anymore, sir. You wouldn't have a house, you wouldn't have a car, you wouldn't have a bank account, you would have nothing because it would be your fault. And you can't say, I thought my son was going to chaperone and I didn't know the people. When you open your house to teenagers to have a party and things get out of hand, it's your fault. Period. End of discussion. So if your house was damaged and vandalized, it's a good lesson. You're responsible for the damage to his car, which is how much, sir?
$2,574.39.
Can I see it, please? Got pictures of the car?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to see the pictures, too.
They're not very good pictures, but they are there.
What, were they there with bats? Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,574.39. Thank you very much. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I think it was a fair decision. However, I'm a little upset that it didn't go my way due to the fact that I feel like I'm a victim as well.
There's nice folks, and I have never had a problem before this, and really didn't want to go this way with it this time, but that's the way it went.
We got out of here. My dad was actually called by Haley because he's a cop.
I took a scar to the hand. A few friends of mine took a bat to the face to try to stop this fight.
I heard a lot of yelling. That's what I heard.
I've got another child that's 13, and he ain't having no parties at the house either. She ruined it for all of them.
It sounded like a normal party going on, just, people having fun, no big deals.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of King versus Hilligas. Step forward, please.
James King is suing his ex-girlfriend, Connie Hilligas, for unauthorized charges she made on his Sears MasterCard. James says Connie took advantage of his kindness.
Mr. King, you and the defendant were involved in a relationship, and according to your complaint, you gave her a credit card. The credit card was your sole responsibility. Did it have her name on it?
I placed her on the account, yes.
The payment of it was your responsibility?
Yes.
Solely. And it was, for what purpose did you give her this credit card?
Connie had become ill, and she was out of work. She did not have insurance, and she needed medicine. And I told her she could use the card in emergency situations, but I also made it clear that she needed to pay the bill when it came in when she was employed.
How long had you been dating at the time?
About a year.
Were you living together?
No.
What kind of credit card did you get for her?
It's a Sears MasterCard.
And when did you give it to her?
I gave it to her approximately April of 2004.
April of 2004?
Yes, ma'am.
And she had it until when?
Until October of 2006.
Who was getting the bills?
She was. We had put the address for billing to her apartment so that she could pay the bill when it came in, and I wouldn't have to bring the bills over to her.
When did you terminate your relationship?
Probably August of 2006.
And between April of 04 and August of 06, you had no knowledge that there was anything happening with this credit card, that there was any delinquency with this credit card, because all the bills were being handled by Miss Hillegas.
That's correct.
Is that right?
Partially correct, yes.
Well, were you paying the bills as they came in?
Yes, ma'am. The account had been more than once substantial amounts of money on it. I paid it off. Mr. King did live with me. I have many witnesses to that fact.
Just a second. I didn't ask you anything
Okay.
else. What happened, sir, in October of 06?
I got a call from Sears Credit Card Services. They said there were some charges on the card that were suspicious. They didn't understand. I spoke with the people there, and they explained to me that there have been balance transfers from other credit cards that were not in my name.
Can I see that, please? Do you have any?
Yes, ma'am, I sure do, right here.
I'd like to see it. Did you transfer balances from other credit cards to his credit card?
No, ma'am. As a matter of fact, in June, I actually transferred it onto my account, paid the account off in full. As far as they were normal charges that I use every month.
I just asked you a question. Did you transfer any other credit card balances to this balance?
No, ma'am.
You did transfer. Capital One card, Merit Bank card, $700.
What was the date on that?
October 5th. Then you had a charge of $295.52 on October 3rd. So you did transfer accounts.
I also have right here a $1,500 payment that I tried to make on the account.
I don't care what you tried to do. What I'm telling you is you transferred other accounts to this account.
And I tried to reverse them, but Mr. King would not allow me to, and I was informed.
Why did you do it to begin with?
To try and get this resolved and get this account paid off.
How do you attempt?
In October.
Listen to me.
Sure.
Come on. How old are you?
42.
Don't try to pull wool over my eyes.
I'm not.
Piddle on my leg.
We're
How
also
much is
bills
left
he
on
paid.
the account?
$2,719.47.
Okay, and you want your money.
Yes, ma'am.
Ball's in your court.
The account numerous times went back and forth for 3 years. I paid on the account back and forth. He was living with me over 2 years. Mr. King called and told me that in no circumstances was I to have anything to do with that account at any time, or he would press charges against me for fraud. I had tried to make a $1,500 balance transfer to the account.
You know I don't understand the word you just said. I mean, I don't understand the relevance of a word that you just said.
Because I tried to pay on the account. He forced it and said I could not.
I want to know why you don't owe him this money. What's your defense?
My defense is Mr. King lived with me for almost 3 years. He never paid me a dime.
So who cares?
It went back and forth for
What's
different
back
things
and
that
forth?
I've
I don't
got for it.
understand. What's back and forth?
Things that I've paid for, he said the account, if he'd left the account alone, I would have gladly paid it. He wanted me to make cash payments to him on a monthly basis. Because of his temper and other hostilities, I didn't want to have to be
Do you know that I
responsible to
don't
make
believe
payment.
a word you're telling me?
That's
not a word you're telling me.
That's fine.
I think what happened was, who broke up with whom in August?
I ended the relationship.
Well, if you ended the relationship in August, then she went on a spending spree. And she was really going to get you because she transferred the other balances to this account. She was really angry with you, Mr. King.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that's too bad. You know, things come, things go, back and forth. With that,
Actually,
you
ma'am, it
owe
was
him
actually September
$2,719. Pay him. That's all. Step out.
Number 152 on the calendar in the matter of Heath versus Coleman. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat.
Mr. Heath, Mrs. Coleman is your neighbor, and this is her son.
Affirmative.
Hmm?
Affirmative.
You are 17.
Yes, ma'am.
But large for your age.
Yes.
And it is your claim that Miss Coleman's son assaulted you.
Assault and battery, ma'am.
Depends on where you live, and you want to be compensated. And Miss Coleman and her son say that you started it, and he just finished it. So, I'm going to start with you. What's your first name?
Marquise.
How long have you and Mr. Heath been neighbors?
I don't know how long he's lived there, but I lived there for 2 years.
How long have you been there, Mr. Heath?
Since May of 2006.
So a little less than a year.
Affirmative.
A year. Have you gotten along for that year that you've been living there?
Up until recently.
What happened recently, Mr. Heath?
On April 25th of 2007, I was outside my door. Mr. Peppers was also outside his door. He was calling me a pedophile. He was saying I should never, never, never say the name of his little sister. I admit I may have started behavior that was more of an interest to a proctologist. But
I don't know what you mean by that, sir.
I was upset that being called a pedophile after 30 years of being a registered nurse here in California.
So he was calling you names and told you never to mention the name of his sister. What did you say to him?
Well, he challenged his authority by claiming that if I said the name of his sister one more time, that he would beat me down. Being that I was very upset because of the general rumor within the neighborhood of me being a pedophile, I did say her name. Her name is Sanji.
And then what happened?
I repeated it a few times as he came
So you taunted
closer.
him. You were a grown-up.
Yes, I was an angry
You were a
grown-up.
grown-up. You were an angry grown-up.
Yes.
And he had called you a vile name.
Quite,
ahead.
especially when I have no record anywhere.
I understand you have no record anywhere.
Okay.
Got it. So you were taunting him, and what did he do?
He pushed me, and then, you know.
How did he push you, Mr. Heath?
I do believe, I will take his word for it, that he belly bumped me.
Okay.
I turned to catch myself, and I was struck on the back. I cannot say exactly if it was him or his friend LJ, but I did
Was his
sustain an
friend
injury
LJ
to my
with
back.
him?
He was right next to him, shoulder to shoulder.
So they both came over to you after you had repeated his sister's name several times.
Affirmative.
And he belly bumped you. When you turned around, somebody hit you in the back.
Yes, well, turning around in that, I was trying to catch myself as I was falling.
And as a result of that, were you injured?
Yes, I have a report from a chiropractor that I have injuries from T6, that's thoracic spine vertebrae 6 to 7. These were significant enough for me not to be able to work for 2 months, which I have documentation from my employer as such.
All right, Mr. Pep, let me hear you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. On the day of that incident, the day before, we had got into like 2 days before we got into an argument. He was
About what?
I was sitting outside because my friends stayed next door to him, and I was sitting outside talking to them, and then my sister.
Talking to whom?
My friends that stay next door to him. And so I'm sitting outside, and then my mom calls me, and she sent my sister to come get me. And my sister comes, and she says, "Marquise, your mom wants you." And then so he reaches over, and she's in between these stairs. He reaches over and pats her on the head. And I say, "Man, don't touch my sister."
Why not?
Because, like, I don't know what it is, but ever since he's moved there, I've been, like, you know, real uncomfortable around him. And he's, like, he acts real, you know, friendly and stuff towards kids, like, you know, little girls. And I just, with my sister, I keep, you know, I'm overprotective about my sister. And so.
But he just touched her on the top of the head.
I know, but it was, like, the way how he did it. Like, you know, he rubbed his hand through her hair. And, like, you know, and I didn't like the way it happened, but I wasn't disrespectful to him. I just said, "Can you don't
Fine,
touch my
you
sister?"
said, "Don't touch my sister." That's all you said to him.
Yeah, but as I said that, my mom walked out, and I told her what happened, and then so they got into an argument, and...
Why did you get into an argument, Miss Coleman, with him?
As I walked out, I heard George yelling at my son, and all I heard was the end of the conversation, and I asked
What
him
did you hear?
He was calling my son ignorant and a pervert for saying what he said or whatever.
Well, did you say anything to him?
I said, "Don't touch my sister's head," and he called me a pervert because he said that I was looking at him as that, like, I don't know why he said it, but he just called me a pervert because I told him not to touch my sister.
And then?
That's when I came out.
Yes.
And I heard them arguing, and my son said, George touched Sanji, and that's when I went to tell him he doesn't have to put his hands on her, do not touch her.
Did your son tell you how he touched her?
No, well, the thing.
Well, why didn't you get that information, Miss Coleman?
I did. When I came over, he said he touched Sanji on the head. And right then, when she said he touched Sanji, I just verbally told him, to keep his hands off my daughter, and I asked my children to come into our yard.
Okay, so that was a couple of days before.
Yes, ma'am.
And then what happened, Mr. Pepper?
And then the day of the incident, we were outside, we played basketball and all of that outside, and George comes out and was playing the guitar to the little girl in the window, and I was just sitting there.
Playing a guitar?
Yeah, playing the guitar and singing to her. But he's sitting there playing the guitar to her, and that's not my relative or anything, so I didn't say anything about that. And somehow he got into an argument with other kids that was on the block, and so they were arguing, and somehow they said to him something about, oh, you touch kids and stuff, and he was like, yeah, I touch a lot of kids. And he started naming off kids on the street, like girls and stuff that he's touched, and then he somehow said Sanji's name, my sister. And then so that was when I got into the conversation, and I asked him, I said, man, don't talk about my sister.
Did you call him a pedophile?
No, I've never called him a pedophile.
Did you call him a pervert?
No, I've never called him a pervert.
What did you call him?
I didn't call him anything. I just said, do not touch my sister.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
So I had chest bumped him, and he just stumbled back and hit the wall and purposely fell to the ground. And he made a lot of weird noise and stuff that, it could tell that it was being acted.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. George Heath claims neighbor 17-year-old Marquise Peppers falsely accused him of being a pedophile and then assaulted him.
Okay, and what did he say to you?
And he got into an argument with me, calling me a pervert and that I'm immature and stuff because I'm calling him out on stuff. And I'm like, I didn't say anything. All I said was, don't touch my sister. And then so we're sitting here, we're arguing, and I stepped back, and my friend was with me also, and he was talking to him. He was like, there's no need for you to say her name. And I pulled him back, and we're about to walk away. And George says it again. He was like, oh, what do you mean, Sanji? And I was like, don't say her name. And then so he takes off his glasses, and he untucks his shirt, and he steps up to me, and he says, what do you mean, Sanji? Sanji, Sanji? And so I had chest bumped him, and it was like a fake stumble type, and he just stumbled back and hit the wall and purposely fell to the ground. And he made a lot of weird noise and stuff that, it could tell that it was being acted. And some kids was laughing at him and stuff because he was acting it out. And his wife said, I'm calling the police. And then so I looked at him, and then I turned around, and my sister was calling me. So I turned around, picked up my sister, and then I told my friend, I was like, let's go. And then we walked to his house.
Mr. Pepper.
Yes, ma'am.
What facts do you have that suggest to you that Mr. Heath's intentions with regard to the kids who play in the neighborhood, either singing to them or patting your sister on the head, is anything other than just genuine caring for children?
It's because of the way he does it. It's real weird. I don't feel comfortable around him. And for that, I don't feel like my sister should be around him. I've never been disrespectful to him or anything.
You assaulted him, sir.
No, ma'am, but
yes,
prior
you
to the
did.
incident,
You assaulted him, sir. He was taunting you, which is not very smart of a grown-up man to do.
Yes, ma'am.
Not very smart to a big 17-year-old, who certainly outweighs him and certainly outmuscles him. But you have no right to put your body on him in any way. You should have been smarter, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Now,
but I had to confront the lie.
Mr. Heath, have you ever been arrested for a sexual offense on a child?
No, ma'am.
The next question is irrelevant, therefore, and you've never been convicted. Is that correct?
No, ma'am.
You have any children of your own?
Yes, ma'am. We have 4 biological children and 1 foster child.
How old is the foster child?
She is 32.
So you raised her?
Affirmative.
And your 4 children, how old are they?
We have a boy who's now Sergeant George Heath of the 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment. We have twin boys, Pete and Repeat. One is Staff Sergeant Joseph Heath of the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment. Our other son is Specialist David Heath, who recently was, last week, was taken out by shrapnel in Baghdad, but he's doing just fine. He'll be in the United States today. And then my daughter, Rebecca Heath, she's 23. She's a certified nurse's aide and a senior in health administration.
Have any of these children visited your home?
Yes.
You live in your home with your wife?
Yes.
How long have you been married?
31 years, ma'am.
Mr. Pepper.
Yes, ma'am.
We are supposed to rejoice in the differences among people in this country. That means that not everybody is made the same.
I know that.
Some people say affirmative rather than yes. Some people may appear to be, to you, a little peculiar, but that doesn't make them a pervert.
No, ma'am, I've
That
never...
doesn't make them strange. That wouldn't inspire me to say to somebody who's the father of 4 children, don't put your hands on my sister. Now, if you said to me that he hit her in the behind or tapped her in the butt, I would say, go over there and you can knock his lights out. But what you told me was he patted her on the head, and you just didn't like the way that looked. And you went outside and all you heard was your son saying to you, he touched your daughter, and you blew. You didn't listen. I think that what you have to do is celebrate the differences amongst people, Mr. Pepper. You have perfect right to say to your daughter, listen, I don't want you to go over to neighbors, strangers, or whatever. But your son has absolutely no business, despite the fact that Mr. Keith was not smart.
Yes, ma'am.
Has no right to go over there and chest bump him, belly bump him, or whatever other kind of bump him he did. His lawsuit asks for $1,700. He's going to get that. You have a counterclaim. Counterclaim is that he filed false charges against you with Child Protective Services. When did he file charges against you with Child Protective Services?
Per the letter, it says on 5/2 that there was an investigation.
And what makes you think that it was Mr. Heath who filed those charges?
Okay, when we went to court for our restraining order, that was denied. Mr. Heath subpoenaed the CP.
Who went to court for a restraining order?
George filed a restraining order on me and my son.
Well, he should have.
Right.
Your son used force against
Right.
him. Was it granted?
No, they were both denied.
Oh, that's ridiculous. In my judgment, it's ridiculous. What grounds do you have to file for an application for a protective order against Mr. Heath?
Because when the incident happened, my daughter constantly goes over there, and it's like he's everywhere my daughter is, he's behind her. Like it's in a place that he goes across the street that my daughter plays at. He's never over there, but every time my daughter is over there, George is over there. You know what I'm saying? It's like it seems like everywhere my daughter is, I see George, normal places where he doesn't go. He's normally in his yard. Like he comes in my yard and uses the water hose. He was told by the judge, he was told by the police officers that he keeps calling on me to stay away from us. We were told to stay away from each other. I agreed. But he constantly, like if my daughter's in the yard, I don't let her out the yard because of the situation. I'll make her stay in the yard and ride the bike. George will come over, open the gate, and use the water hose, or, you know, just do stuff to, you know, to have me try to have confrontation towards us.
What proof do you have that Mr. Heath called
I don't have proof that he called, but for our restraining order, he had all the information. How does he know that CPS came to my house? When we went to court, he filed a subpoena for the CPS worker to come to our restraining order. That's how I assumed that he called, because...
Did you have that information, Mr. Heath?
The reason I know that Ms. Johnson is a child protective worker is that she was at Ms. Coleman's door, and when I saw her, and I said, I don't think Ms. Coleman's there. She asked, you know, who are you? I identified myself and where I live, and then she identified herself, and we went into my apartment, and we had a discussion concerning, well, actually, one of the things we discussed is whether or not I am a pedophile. Obviously, I'm here, not arrested, so she felt there was no basis for the allegation that I'm a pedophile.
Did you make a call to Child Protective Services, sir?
Can I leave that under confidentiality?
See what I'm saying?
Well,
yes or no? I'll answer if you, if you want me to.
The point is, Mr. Heath, if you had grounds in your judgment to place a call to Child Protective Services, because that's her counterclaim, she says that you had no basis. She believes that you did call.
Okay, that would be a different question. Would I have, if I called, would I have a basis? The answer is yes, I would.
Well, tell me what basis you had if you had called.
Okay.
Got it.
I'm sorry, I don't consider that very funny. The basis I have is that I have seen her use the most unusual type of child rearing, curse words at her daughter. I've seen her with an open hand strike her daughter in the head. Also, I am quite suspicious that her daughter has some type of minimal brain damage. I'm not sure if it's cerebral palsy like my wife.
Shh, quiet. Can't be quiet, you'll leave. Do you understand? Good. Go ahead.
I am not sure if it's cerebral palsy, or I'm not sure if it's attention deficit disorder, but I know she has fine motor coordination problems because one of the things I have done with the children is to plant a garden. And when Sanji came up to plant, she could not follow my simple instructions that I could get children half her age to do. So I'm just...
Put your hand down. Go ahead.
I am quite concerned. I do
Okay,
know...
so that would be the basis. If you
Yes.
had called...
If I had called.
If you had called, that would be the reason that you called.
Affirmative.
Go ahead.
Okay. As far as me, the allegation was that I called my daughter the B word and I hit her with an open fist. My daughter is really, I would never, I do not use that word. I don't like that word. I don't like to be called that word because my mother called me that, and I would never call my children that, no matter how angry or what we were going through. So that's just ridiculous. And as far as me hitting my daughter with an open fist, there's just no
open hand.
Yeah, open hand. There's no way. I don't. You can ask my son. She doesn't even get in trouble. So I don't even know.
Your counterclaim's denied. You owe Mr. Heath $1,700, which is what he's asking for this assault. Mr. Heath may be a peculiar man. He may not have exercised good judgment when he taunted you by repeating your sister's name. It doesn't give you license to put your hand or your body, and you have a big body, sir, on another human being. You have no right to do that. As I said, there is no indication today that Mr. Heath is anything other than maybe a slight bit odd.
I resemble that remark.
Right. But that's it. And we celebrate that kind of stuff in this country. You have an absolute right to say to your daughter, I don't want you to play with Mr. Heath. I don't want you alone with him. Don't go to his house. But you can't put your hands on him. Do you get it?
Yes, ma'am.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,700.
Case number 9 on the calendar in the matter of Whale versus Gray.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated, sir. Have a seat, please.
Miss Whale, you met the defendant at a gym. Was she your trainer?
Yes.
And then she became your tenant. She and her children moved into a basement apartment that you have.
Yes.
According to your complaint, when she left, she owed you rent, and she also owed you for some babysitting services.
Yes.
Ms. Gray says she paid rent while she was there. She owes you nothing, and she is counterclaiming because she says you failed to give her any notice of your intention to terminate the tenancy, unceremoniously packed her things and put them outside, and some of her things were ruined. And she also wants moving expenses because you put her out in the street with her children in the middle of the month. So she's counterclaiming.
Yes.
When did she move into your apartment?
August 15th.
And according to what I read, when she moved in, you did not pay any rent for August.
No, ma'am, I did not.
And Ms. Whale, according to what I gather from your complaint, you sort of agreed to waive August's rent.
No, that's not correct.
Yes, I believe you did.
I have a...
Shh. Between August 15th or 19th, when she moved in, and December, when you put her out, when did you demand that she pay the 2 weeks in August?
We spoke about it on a regular basis.
Really?
That is not correct.
Shh, just a minute. I don't think I believe that.
I have a witness who...
Who was that?
Stephen Rose. He'll testify otherwise.
Fine. But I don't think that you expected rent from her for August. Did she pay rent in September?
Yes.
Did she pay rent in October?
Yes.
Did she pay rent in November?
Yes.
How much did she pay a month?
$600.
Correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Did she pay December's rent?
She did with the check that she bounced.
Shh. Don't say anything. When did she pay December's rent?
On the 13th, she was late all the time.
But she paid your rent on December 13th. When did you put her out?
The 15th.
Well, if you put her out, why did you cash her check for December?
Because she owed me for the first 2 weeks that she was there.
No, she didn't.
She was...
No, she didn't. I mean, I read your complaint. You say that you didn't like the way she treated her child, you didn't like her comings and goings, and you decided to get her out. When did you tell her you were putting her out?
We tried to get a hold of her all that day, and she was speaking about moving out for weeks.
Your Honor. Shh. Listen, if you interrupt again, we're going to find in her favor, which is not going to be easy for me, but I don't like shouting out.
Excuse me.
You had been trying to get in touch with her all day. All day is not what a landlord does. A landlord gives a tenant notice.
Your Honor, she had been telling me that she was moving out for weeks.
Whether she tells you she's moving out or not, she paid you rent for the month of December, anticipating that she would have a place to live in the month of December. 2 days later, you kicked her out and went to cash her check. And she canceled the check because you kicked her out, and now you're suing her for the month of December's rent. I mean, that's outrageous. Outrageous. So she doesn't owe you any rent. I'm finding that right now. And because of what you did by throwing her out in the middle of the month without any notice, she doesn't owe you anything for the 2 weeks that she lived there in December. Nothing. Let's go to child care. Explain the child care scenario to me.
I went through the motions of becoming certified so that she could get assistance from the state for child care, and the state paid a portion. Her ex-husband paid his portion.
State paid how much?
It was different according to the months because she worked different hours.
When did you start babysitting for her?
The second she moved in.
In August?
Yes.
When did you become certified?
The process was a few months.
Did they pay you retroactively?
No, they paid me along the way because they said since I was in the process of becoming certified, then that was fine with them.
How many children do you have?
I have 3 children.
And you were watching all 3 children?
From time to time, yes. One of them was in kindergarten for part of the time.
Well, what was your financial arrangement?
That the rest of it would be paid by her and her ex. They were going to split that. Her ex always paid me, she didn't.
Is that correct?
Your Honor, I have this as evidence in a long letter that she wrote to me. Number 5, I have highlighted. You save hundreds of dollars a month because I am willing to trade your portion of child care fees for training at the gym.
Can I see it, please? Can I see that?
Agreed to...
She did not honor that part.
That's not true.
Shh. Well, that's what you say. You say you are trading as of November 2006. You save hundreds of dollars because I'm willing to trade your portion of child care fees for training at the gym.
Which didn't happen.
Well, it may not have happened, but you didn't say that here. As of November 7th, you had agreed that she was doing this trade with you. You didn't say you could have saved hundreds of dollars because I was willing to trade, but you didn't give me the training. You say you save hundreds of dollars monthly because I'm willing to trade your portion of child care fees for training at the gym. That's as of November. And you put her out in December. That's what it says. What else does she owe you for?
Damage to the property.
What kind of damage to the property?
Carpet that has to be replaced, which I'm not charging her for. I'm just charging her for the cleaning of the carpet, as well as wall damage.
You have pictures of the damage?
I don't. I have estimates for it.
You must be very angry with her for some reason.
I am not.
Because I don't see, because
rightly
quite
mine.
frankly, I don't see a case here. She came to live with you in August. She paid September, October, November, and December's rent. You put her out in December, in the middle of the month. She stopped payment on the check, which was the absolute right thing to do. You had an agreement with her that in addition to the substantial living that you were making as a result of watching the children and the state paying for it, and you were getting additional money from the ex-husband to cover unreimbursed portions, you were bartering the service with her, which you acknowledged that you were bartering for training at the gym.
Which she didn't honor.
Well, you don't say that here in a letter that you sent to her in November. And if all you have to do after she moved out is clean the carpet, sounds to me as if it's just fine. Is it a legal apartment that you have there?
No.
It's not a legal apartment?
No.
Then you're not entitled to any rent. If it's not a legal apartment, but she's entitled to it, she's entitled to all of her rent back. That's what happens when you rent an illegal apartment to somebody with 3 children. You are counterclaiming because you say that she put you out in the middle of the month. She absolutely did. Where did you go?
Yes, ma'am. It was blizzard, snowing outside. I went to my friend's house that lives across the street, and I slept on her couch. I was not able to get my children back from the end of the weekend from my ex-husband for several days because I had nowhere to put my children.
Are the children with you now?
Yes, ma'am.
Because according to the plaintiff, she called Child Protective Services and reported what she considered abuse or neglect on your part. So I assume there was an investigation. Was there?
No, ma'am, there was not an investigation, but there was abuse on her part to my children, I feel, Your Honor.
Well, you don't talk about that here. I don't understand why this lady came to court, quite frankly. She's exposed herself terribly. Don't you know that you're not allowed to charge rent for an illegal apartment?
She was going to be out on the street. I was helping her out.
Well, you can help her out. You can help her out and let her stay in your basement.
I couldn't let her stay
No,
in my
listen to me.
basement.
You can help her out and let her stay in your basement, but you can't charge rent. You cannot rent an illegal apartment unless you have a certificate of occupancy for the apartment. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Perfect. You're not allowed to put somebody out. She's suing you for $1,300. Your claim is dismissed. Her counterclaim is granted. $1,300 for the defendant. That's all.
Thank
Step
you, Your
out.
Honor.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Well, I needed to ask her to leave because she was locking her son under the stairs.
I didn't lock him there and like leave him there.
In a teeny little cubby in a storage space with no heat and no light.
That's not true. I did not lock him in this tiny little place under the stairs.
I couldn't have that abuse going on in my home anymore.
There was a big space under the stairs, but it's a huge house. It was a huge place.
It was about neglect. She just wanted to party and she wanted to have somebody watch her kids 24/7.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Lusk versus Rothrock, step forward.
19-year-old Rebecca Lusk is suing party guest 19-year-old Jeffrey Rothrock for denting her vehicle during a wrestling match with another guest.
Miss Lusk, it is your claim that the defendant is responsible for denting your car during a fight.
Yes.
Defendant's position is that it was the other guy who was really responsible, some guy named Charlie.
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you witness this altercation?
I saw that when he was actually thrown into the car.
I'd like you to tell me what happened. First, when it happened, or where you were when it happened?
I was in the house up in my room with my best
Where?
friend.
In your house, where? What jurisdiction?
It was nighttime, and
Jurisdiction, that means where? That means the place.
the upstairs part of the house.
Were you in Colorado,
Oh,
Massachusetts?
Fountain Valley.
And where is Fountain Valley?
In Orange County, right
In
next
California.
to Huntington Beach, yes.
And at what time did this happen?
I think it was about 10:30 at night.
And did you know Mr. Rothrock before?
No, I had not known him prior to that night.
What were you doing there that evening, sir?
I was with a couple of my friends, and we were going there for a party.
Were you having a party that night?
No, he went to dinner with one of my roommates. She was going with some friends from high school to dinner that night. And then they came over after dinner.
So there was a little gathering at your house?
Yeah, it was only about 8 people, though.
I said a little gathering at your house. And you were upstairs in your room?
Yes. I had gotten off work that night.
Go ahead, let me hear.
So I had gotten off work, and I was in my room watching TV with my roommate. We lived in the master bedroom, not her. And she was leaving. She went outside, my witness. She said they were fighting.
Who was
and that
fighting?
He and Charlie.
And whose friend is he?
He's Tina, who he was with that night, my roommate. They were with her.
And Charlie was her friend?
Yes.
Go ahead.
She came upstairs to get me and said that they were fighting near my car.
What were you fighting with Charlie about?
Well, it started with a wrestling match, and then
You were out to dinner that evening with him?
actually I didn't go to dinner with Charlie. Prior to that, I probably only knew Charlie. I met him one time before that.
So it started with a wrestling match?
Yeah.
Which you did not see?
No.
Well, why don't you tell me about the wrestling match, Mr. Rothrock?
Okay, so
Tongue twister.
we're in the backyard.
Wrestling match, Mr. Rothrock. Go ahead.
Okay, we were in the backyard, and just basically he was saying a lot of like untrue statements that night, and I kind of laughed at one, and because he said that he could beat anyone in a wrestling match there. And he was a former wrestler, and so he challenged me to a wrestling match, and I wrestled him, and then it got broken
Okay,
up.
so he challenged you and you said okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Had you been drinking that night?
Yes, Your Honor.
And what about Charlie?
Yes, he was too.
And how old are you, sir?
I'm 19.
Are you allowed to drink in California at age 19?
No, Your Honor.
Where'd you get the liquor from? Is not an answer.
Sorry, Your Honor. Someone that night bought it.
Who bought it?
I really don't know. It was
Where did
there-
you consume it? Is not an answer. Don't
Sorry.
think. Tell the truth.
Probably
Then you
about-
don't have to have a good memory.
Probably about an hour after I got there.
Where did you consume it?
In the backyard and in the kitchen.
So when you were drinking in the backyard, that's when you and Charlie decided to have this wrestling match.
Yes, Your Honor.
Keep going.
Okay, so that got broken up, and then...
Makes it so easy.
We went again, and that got broken up too.
Okay, so you wrestled twice.
And then...
Who won the first match?
He won the first match, and I won the second match.
So he pinned you first.
Yes.
Then you pinned him second. Aren't you impressed that an old broad like me understands that term? Let me hear.
Okay, he wanted to wrestle again, and I was pretty much physically exhausted, and so I didn't agree to it, and I honestly don't know how, but probably 30 seconds after we started fighting, and then that got broken up, and immediately after that, I'm not sure who it was, but some owners of the house pretty much stated that they didn't want me to be there anymore, so I left, and I went to the front of the house to wait for my friends, and we were going to go home, and people came outside, and Charlie was one of them, and he had his shirt off, and he was getting in my face, kind of, clenching his fists and stuff, and, he kind of tackled me.
How do you kind of tackle somebody?
He speared me.
What has speared you?
He wrapped my legs up and put his upper body into my, stomach, and that's how I fell into the car.
Is that what you saw?
No, ma'am.
You want to come up here and tell me what you saw? First, tell me your name.
I'm Lindsay Gardner. I'm Becca's best friend.
All right, Miss Gardner, tell me what you saw.
I was actually leaving the house when they...
What had you been doing that evening?
I was hanging out with Becca. She had just gotten off work and I was in the area, so I just came over to say hi.
Okay.
So
what had you been doing that evening?
I was working as well.
So you weren't drinking?
No.
Only they were drinking?
Yeah, we were both sober.
Yeah.
We weren't drinking.
Go ahead.
I was leaving. The defendant was outside. He was Charlie and he were verbally abusing each other, talking very loudly outside. That's when I went back upstairs and grabbed Becca and said, there's going to be a fight out in front of your house. And it's out in front of the house. It wasn't in the backyard. This is where the fight had occurred. I went out and then the fight had turned physical. And I was screaming at the top of my lungs, stop, stop, take this somewhere else. You're getting too close to her vehicle, stop. It was the only one there. And from then I saw the defendant. It looked like he pushed Charlie into the car, because if you saw what the car looked like, it's not like it's just a little push. It was like you needed force to make the damage on the car.
Got it. And who are you?
My name is Drew Adzovich.
You're Drew what?
Adzovich, and I was there the night that it happened. I was with him actually, and
were you drinking too?
I only had we got there late, so I only had maybe like a beer or two.
Beer or two. Where did you have the beer or two?
In the backyard.
How old are you?
21 now.
But you were 20
then.
at
the time though, yeah.
Yeah. Who brought the alcohol?
I don't remember. I think it was there. I think it was at the house. Because I knew the girl at the house. I went to high school with her, and that's how we went down there. And then
Did you go out for dinner with Charlie?
No. I don't really like that guy, to tell you the truth.
I'm beginning not to like him either. Go ahead, let me hear.
Yeah, so then, like you said, what happened in the backyard, they kind of...
Get the backyard, go to the front.
Well, when I was outside, Charlie came up to me and he was trying to apologize to him. And he wasn't having it. He was like, no, just leave me alone. And he kept trying to and kept going.
Who kept trying?
Charlie. He kept pushing the issue. And Jeff...
Apologizing.
Apologizing. And then finally he got mad. And like he said, he clenched his fist and then he just tackled him and he fell back. And that's why the dent was so big. It's because he fell backwards into the car.
And
to be exact.
You didn't see anybody on the ground?
No, it was chaotic. You know how fights happen.
You didn't hear this young lady say, take it someplace else?
No,
Look at me.
She wasn't even out there.
This young lady wasn't out there?
Oh, I didn't see her. I'm talking about the owner.
I'm not talking about the owner. I'm talking about this little lady right here. You didn't see her out there?
It was too chaotic. When fights happen, you don't see everything that happens.
Excuse me. What did you say?
When fights happen, it's so chaotic, you don't remember, you don't see what happens.
Right. Sit down. Thank you. Mr. Rothrock.
Yes, Your Honor.
You are responsible, sir, for what happened to her car. If you believe that Charlie, too, was responsible for what happened to the car, sue him. She doesn't have to go find Charlie. She's got you. Do you understand? That's what they call, in legalese, impleading. You could implead Charlie in this action, and you could have said, listen, I'm partially responsible because I was drunk and stupid and I shouldn't have been drinking. He's partially responsible, so maybe we should each pay half. But the plaintiff doesn't have to go against both of you. She can only go against one of you if she wishes. And she chose you. I don't care why. You got to pay. And if you think Charlie should be partially responsible, sue him. I'm here every day. How much did it cost you to fix your car?
$1,197.54.
You have the bill?
Yes.
What kind of car is it?
2004 BMW.
Nice car.
Yes.
Who works?
I do.
You pay for it yourself?
Yes.
Good girl. Proud of you.
Thank you.
Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $1,197.54.
Parties are excused. You may step out. It's horrible. That's case number 109 on the calendar in the matter of Rodriguez versus Taylor. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Ladies, have a seat.
Mr. Rodriguez, how do you know Miss Taylor?
She worked at the same office with my wife. She was a co-worker.
Of your wife's?
Yes.
How long had you known her before you sold her a car?
I never knew her. I just got the phone number through my wife. She told my wife she was interested in a car and I was selling one, so I gave her a call.
And what kind of car were you selling?
It's a Malibu Classic 79.
And why were you selling it?
Because I needed the money, because I was unemployed.
And what were you and your wife going to be driving?
Oh, I had another car. I had two other cars.
What other kind of cars did you have, Mr. Rodriguez?
I had another 78 Malibu and another 79 Malibu.
You like that car?
Yes, I like Malibus.
And this is what you want. You sold Miss Taylor the car for $2,000.
Yes.
And because you say you felt sorry for her because she was a single mother, you agreed to let her make payments on it. $500 down, and then she gave you another $100. So far she's paid $600 towards the car.
Yes.
And then, according to you, she let you know she didn't want the car and she wanted her money back. You're suing her for breach of contract.
Yes.
You want her to pay the rest of what she owes on the car, and you're suing her because you say she did damage to the car.
Yes, she did.
Because you repossessed the car.
Yes,
So
I
now
did.
you have the car
Yes.
and her $600.
No.
Where's her $600?
When she gave them to me, I was unemployed, and I had to pay people back and give my wife money.
Listen to me. I don't mean that... Mr. Rodriguez, I don't mean necessarily that you still have the $600 in your possession. You didn't give it back to her. So you have the car and her $600.
No. She gave me $600 down. Then she said that she didn't want it no more.
So did you give her the $600 back?
No.
You spent it.
I spent some of the money, and I offered her $200. I said, that's all I have now. But I didn't have the car. When she called me, she still had it.
I want to know if you gave her any of her money back that she kept.
No, she wouldn't let me give her
So
anything.
then you have the car.
No, I don't have the car in my possession.
Who has the car?
I have it now because I repossessed it after.
This had to be my 9th case of the day. I don't want you to say anything, Mr. Rodriguez. I just want you to listen to me and believe what I tell you.
Okay.
You currently have her $600 and the car that you sold her.
Okay, I do.
And you're suing her for the rest of the money and because you say she did damage to the car. You got it?
Oh, I got it.
What's the blue book value of this car, Mr. Rodriguez?
I don't know.
Well, let's find out. 1979 Chevy Malibu. Do you think we could get that information,
Sure.
Officer Byrd? Thank you very much.
Can I say something? It all depends on how you fix the car. You can restore any car and make it look good and make it worth money. I had it nice.
Not according to her.
Okay.
Miss Taylor, on what date did you initially see this car?
On March 24th.
And you agreed to pay him $2,000 for the car? And when did you tell him that there were problems with the car?
March 25th, the next day.
What was wrong with it?
The blinkers weren't working, the speedometer, the roof was coming down, and also...
when you say the roof was coming down, what do you mean the roof
it was
coming
tacked up, and I didn't realize it was tacked up.
Was it a convertible?
No.
She's talking about the upholstery.
Yeah, the upholstery was tacked up.
With what?
With thumbtacks.
This is the car that you restored? Mr. Rodriguez? Shh. You tacked up the interior with thumbtacks?
No, look. The car, the interior is all red. You know, it has the okay, what happened was from the windows being open, it was starting to come out. So I did put some red ones in there, some little ones, the round ones. Not the long ones they use in school, in elementary. I mean, that's what she's trying to say. Trying to make it seem like. I had it red ones, you couldn't even see them. And that day when she got it, she's like, what's up with this? And I told her, but just, you know, it's coming down, just, you can fix it yourself, that's it. She never asked about blinkers, nothing.
Wait, what do you mean she didn't ask about blinkers? When you buy a car, you say your blinkers work? Is that what you're asking?
When I buy a car, I make sure I ask, hey, is there any malfunctions? Make sure the lights work, everything. The radio, whatever I need to know. You know, she didn't ask any questions. She just wanted a car.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Rodriguez?
Right now I'm unemployed, but I'm a machinist.
Take your hands off your hips. How long have you been unemployed?
For a few months.
So who supports you, your wife?
I just do side jobs or whatever I had to
What
do.
does that mean you do side jobs? You say your wife works. She's a co-worker of hers, so if you don't work, then your wife supports you.
Well, she supports me.
You have children?
Yes, I do.
How many children do you have?
3.
So your wife supports you, she supports your 3 children, and she works full-time. And she takes care of the house.
No, I take care of the house.
I doubt that.
And the kids, everything.
Sure.
Can I say something?
Sure.
When I got there, I looked at the car. He had taken out the speakers. There's 2 holes in the back of the trunk. And he was inside the trunk trying to hold it up. He said he was going to fix that. And then he said that the gasket on the left side was fixed, but the right side was missing. He said he would fix it.
Miss Taylor, you're not much of a business person. What did Mr. Rodriguez say when you said, I want to return the car after one day?
He said, well, I don't have the money right now. And I was like,
Because he spent it.
Yeah. He said that he owed people or he was going to put it in the bank, but then he told me that day I called him that he put it into his other car.
Into his other car? So, do we have any figure?
Nope.
Doesn't go back that far.
Don't go back that far.
Judge.
You got an 87. And
What does the 87 show?
It said $0.
So it says the 87 is worth nothing.
Pretty much. Unless it's in fantastic condition.
not kept together by thumbtacks.
Pretty much.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You're buying a car that's 25 years old, and you're dumb enough to pay $2,000 for it. As far as I'm concerned, you deserve what you get.
And later today,
You should kiss the ground right where you're standing and say, I'm going to be smarter next time. The next time I wait 10 years to have a guy move in with me, I'm going to know him more than 2 weeks. And it's not going to be a recent parolee from state's prison.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Fernando Rodriguez claims Tracy Taylor owes for breach of contract and damages to a '79 Chevy Malibu. Tracy is countersuing for the return of $600.
Miss Taylor, what did he say to you about getting the money back to you?
He said that he's not working right now. He already put the money into his car and give him about a week. If he couldn't come up with it in a week, he'll borrow it from a relative or family
That's what he
member.
told you. And how much after that did he come and pick up the car?
About 3 weeks later, because the end of that week I called him and he said that he barely got a job, so I'm thinking like at least a week or every 2 weeks you get paid. So I waited 2 more weeks, and then he said he lost his job or something.
But he did initially say to you when you called, he said, I don't have the money.
Yeah.
But give me some time and I'll get it to you. And then he took the car back.
I didn't know he took the car back.
How did you find out he took the car back?
Oh, because I got home and then I took a nap and then I went to take my mom to work and I looked and it wasn't there.
Mr. Rodriguez, your lawsuit is for breach of contract. You say that she made a contract with you and she didn't fulfill her obligations under the contract. Your lawsuit against her is dismissed. It's dismissed for the following reason, because I find that you agreed to take the car back and give her back her money. Ordinarily, Miss Taylor, I couldn't help you because you buy a used car as is. If you're buying a car that's 25 years old and you're dumb enough to pay $2,000 for it, as far as I'm concerned, you deserve what you get. However, he's a slick character. He got $600 from you for this car. He should have been walking home, clicking his heels and saying, $600, it's worth less than zero, and I got $600 for it. So he should have been happy. Now he's got you $600 and he's got his car. Put your hand down. Ordinarily, in a court, in all probability, you would get nothing. However, I believe you when you say that Mr. Rodriguez agreed to take the car back when you called him the next day and said, listen, everything is falling apart in this car. I want the $600. I believe you when you say that he told you, I can't give it all back to you because I put some in my car, because that's what an idiot would do who has 3 children and no job. They would take a piece of $600 and put it in their car and get woofers or tweeters or speakers because he's got nothing else to do with his time but play with his cars. So I believe you when he promised to return your money, and he didn't do that. So his claim is dismissed. You get nothing, zero, except you have your car. So you can go find somebody else who might want to buy your car, Mr. Rodriguez, because on her counterclaim, she's getting back her $600.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Because of ignorant people and they're laughing, I couldn't even give my proof.
I'm just really happy that, you know, even though I was kind of naive to the whole situation, that it's finally over with and she did believe me.
I offered her $200 a day, she didn't want it, and she told me, no, I want the full.
He didn't offer $200 a day, he offered $200 when the police were there.
The way she is, she likes to work people.
As soon as I got in the car and hit my head and something fell down, I was like, no, it's not for my baby.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of McCormick versus Havens. Step forward, please.
Sherry McCormick is suing her ex-boyfriend, 25-year-old Jason Havens, for a series of unpaid loans. Sherry says she moved Jason in only weeks after his release from prison.
Miss McCormick, did you and Mr. Havens ever live together?
Yes, we did.
When?
From about October till March.
October of 2004 until March of 2005?
Yes, ma'am.
Had he been in prison before that?
Yes.
How long were you incarcerated, Mr. Havens?
4 years.
For what?
Burglary and robbery.
Just the first time you were in jail?
Yes.
How did you meet?
At a bar.
How long had you been out of when you met Miss McCormick?
2 weeks.
Where had you been living?
I was staying with my father at the time being.
Where are you working now, Mr. Havens?
I just do side roof jobs, work under the table, doing roofing, construction.
You're not supposed to say in front of 10 million people, sir, including the IRS, that you're being paid under the table. I'm just suggesting that to you. I didn't ask you that question, whether you were paid under the table. So you don't necessarily, be smart, you don't necessarily have to volunteer that information. Do you understand? How much after you met him did he move in with you, Miss McCormick?
It was a few weeks. We had a first date a week later, and then it was a few weeks after that he moved in.
And you live with your daughter?
Yes.
NS, you know what NS means? Not smart.
I know. I know.
Really not smart, because I assume that since Mr. Havens is so honest with me, he told you that he had been released from prison 2 weeks before, that he had been in prison for burglary and robbery.
Well, that wasn't the story that I heard in the beginning.
He wasn't in prison for working under the table.
No, he wasn't.
Okay, and you don't get 4 years for a first-time offense.
I don't know the court system that well, but...
all right, but you do watch television.
Yes.
That's what educates most people. Didn't educate you enough because you allowed him to move into your house with your daughter. Is this your daughter?
Yes, it is.
Miss McCormick. It's your claim that you made a series of loans to Mr. Havens.
Yes.
During the time that he was living there with you. Mr. Havens says, yes, you did give him money. He was getting back on his feet, and you were more than happy to help him to do that.
That wasn't the case. They were loans.
Let me hear about them, Miss McCormick. I'm going to have to make a judgment about that.
I believe the first one was he came home one night and he had a fat lip. He had been in a gambling game and lost $250. And I had heard some of the voice messages from these people who were after him. And I didn't want to see anything happen to him, so he asked to borrow the money. I, as a matter of fact, had to borrow $100 of it from my grandmother to give him.
When was this?
That was in October, early November.
Keep going.
During the period of time, he would come to me and ask me for $20 here, $10 there, ask me for money to go see his daughter, to do things with his daughter, and at one time he ended up at a party with his cousin with the money that I had loaned him to do something with his daughter.
And when was that?
Probably in November.
November. All righty. So let's see what we got. We've got someone that you met in a bar that moved in with you 2 weeks later, who had been released from prison after serving 4 years. During that same month, he comes home after a gambling debt leaves him bloodied, according to you. You have people calling and leaving voice messages, and those people are saying that they're going to cut him off at the knees unless he gives them this $250, whatever.
Yeah.
So you borrow money from your grandmother to get him out of that fix, and then you continue to live with him. When you start giving him more money, 20 here, 10 there, and then some money to go and visit his daughter, and you find out that he ended up at a party with a friend and didn't use the money for the visit with his daughter. That's in November. Let's go to the next one.
I had gone to Florida and he house sat for me. He asked for money while I was in Florida and I left him money, and while I was in Florida he ran out of money, so I had called my dad's girlfriend and she took him over another 20. You know, all this was in promise that when he got his money from his loan from school that he would pay me back.
Is that right?
No, that's not right.
Nah! Don't believe a word of that, Miss McCormick. You've got to start using your brains. How many men have you had living in your house with your daughter in the last 10 years?
Only one.
Only him?
Yes.
You were certainly holding out, and you waited for some, and you got some bargain.
I'm not
you got
saying I
yourself
didn't make a big mistake.
the real pick of the litter. You bought a car from her, is that right?
Yes.
Did you give her any money down?
I gave her an $800 down payment and agreed to pay the rest of the $2,000 monthly.
She took the car back.
Yeah, before the first payment.
Did he give you $800 towards the car?
No, he did not.
How much did he give you?
He didn't give me anything.
She's not going to admit to it. I gave her $800. I gave her 50s and 100s because I got it out of my school loan check. That was the whole point of me getting the loan, was so I could get a car. And she was the perfect opportunity for me to get a car, so I got it from her.
Can I say something, Your Honor?
Sure.
He made it a point to have his father mail me a check so he would have a receipt for the first payment. And if he gave me $800 supposedly, I would think he would have wanted a receipt for it also.
That was before I moved out, before she went crazy and tried to go to my friends' houses and try to find me everywhere every night.
Which I did not do.
He doesn't have a counterclaim for this $800. He just says, listen, I bought a car from her, I gave her some cash. She repossessed the car because I didn't finish paying, because I didn't
She
pay for
repoed
it.
it the day
She just
before
didn't
it
want me
was
to
even
have it
due.
anymore. She
Yeah.
repossessed the car. So he doesn't have a counterclaim. I don't have to even believe that he gave you $800. All I have to believe is, from your perspective, is whether or not you advanced him this money with an expectation of being repaid. I don't believe any sane person who's 43 years old, who has a teenage daughter, who runs a house, first gives him $250, then without getting a penny back, gives him more money a couple of weeks later, and then a couple of months later, without getting any more money back, gives him more money and has a legitimate expectation of being repaid. I don't believe that you had a legitimate expectation of being repaid.
I did,
I
Your
think
Honor.
you made a big mistake, and the big mistake was letting him move in. The big mistake was not the few $100 that you gave him over the course of the months that he was living there. And you should kiss the ground right where you're standing that he left your house, and left your house intact, and left you intact, and left your daughter intact. And say, I'm going to be smarter next time. The next time I wait 10 years to have a guy move in with me, I'm going to know him more than 2 weeks. And it's not going to be a recent parolee from state's prison. Your lawsuit is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out of Hackett versus Shell. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Mr. Hackett, it is your claim that Mr. Shell assaulted you with a bat. You were escorting home a friend of yours, a woman. Is that this young lady?
Yes, ma'am.
This used to be her boyfriend.
Still is.
But at the time you were escorting her home, she had had a protective order against him.
Right.
Or she was afraid of him, and she asked you to take her home. And according to you, Mr. Shell showed up with a bat and out of the blue assaulted you quite badly. You were seriously injured, and you had a conversation with Mr. Shell's father. Is he here today, Mr. Shell?
No, ma'am.
According to you, that conversation was, please don't press charges against my son because he's already got enough trouble with the law at this moment. And if you were to press charges, he probably would go to prison. You negotiated a settlement with him, which he did not follow through with. So you are now suing him for $5,000 for this assault. Mr. Shell says that he has finally resolved all of his other problems with the criminal justice system, and he is now free to fight these baseless charges. Okay? You there. Name, please.
Salwa Akaway.
How old are you?
I'm 25.
How long have you and Mr. Shell been together?
For about a year and a half.
On August 18th, 2004, were you and Mr. Shell together or apart?
We were together, but we were fighting at the moment.
Had you ever, Miss Akaway, sought in a court a protective order against Mr. Shell? Is not an answer.
Okay. No, it didn't actually go through, but I
didn't ask you whether it went through. I said, have you ever sought a protective order against Mr. Shell?
No, I didn't.
You never went to a police station, a court, and requested a protective order?
Not requested a protective order.
You want to stop playing games with me, Miss Akaway, and tell me what you did?
I'm not playing games.
Listen to me very carefully. I've been married 28 years. If somebody said to me, did you ever seek a protective order against your husband, I would say no.
I just said no.
No, you didn't. You said, I never actually went through with requesting a protective order. It's what you said to me, Miss Akaway. There's a difference. Do you understand?
I understand.
Good. Now you want to tell me what steps you took to consider a protective order against Mr. Shell. Answer the question.
I didn't take any steps. I mean, I didn't go anywhere or went to the police or anything.
Could you stand up? Good. Now, there was a reason that Mr. Hackett was taking you home on the evening of August 18th. You want to tell me what that was, Miss Akaway?
Yes. I mean, I went out to the bar or whatever, and I just asked him to escort me home because I was afraid.
Afraid of what?
Just afraid of just going home.
Mr. Hackett, she's having a brain trauma right now. She's very hard for her to get it together. Mr. Hackett, would you like, please, sir, to tell me the conversation that you had with Miss Akaway with regard to taking her home that evening?
Yes. She came up to me and she was very distressed. She said that she was afraid that her ex-boyfriend or boyfriend, I don't know, had just gotten released from jail and was harassing her, and she was scared, and that they...
Does that sound familiar to you?
Yes, actually it is.
Miss Akaway, don't play with me. I'm giving you fair warning Don't play with me. Now, so she was afraid the boyfriend was just getting out of jail?
Yes.
What were you in jail for, sir?
Ma'am, I had been out of jail for quite a while at that
Good.
point.
What had you been out of jail for a long time about?
I had been got out of prison for assault on a public servant.
What public servant did you assault?
Police officer, ma'am.
Shh, shh. Listen, I don't need any help from you. Now, you assaulted a police officer.
Yes, ma'am, at age 17.
And how long were you incarcerated?
I was incarcerated for 5 years and 2 months, flat.
Must have injured the police officer pretty badly. What did you assault the police officer with?
With my foot.
With your foot?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that the only time you had been incarcerated, Mr. Shell?
No, ma'am.
Subsequent to getting out of jail, were you incarcerated again?
Since prison?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
For what?
For assault.
Who?
On Cellowak Way.
When?
That would have been in January of
What date was it, Miss Agaway?
It was last year, January 8th, I think.
So when I asked you, Miss Agaway, whether or not you would ever sought a protective order against him, were you granted a protective order?
No.
So when he was arrested for assault and incarcerated for the assault, I assume that you were injured.
Yes, I was.
How were you injured?
I just had bruises all over my body. Like, well, mainly my arms.
But you forgave him?
Yes, I guess you can say that. Yes, yes.
Who are you?
Corey Shell, Garrett's brother.
Good. Now you can sit down for a minute.
Okay, thanks.
So you were escorting Miss Agaway home because she was afraid of Mr. Shell, who had just gotten out of prison and had been incarcerated subsequent to that for assaulting her, which is a very good reason to ask somebody to escort her home. And what happened, Mr. Hackett?
I drove in the car behind her car, and when we arrived at the house, she asked me to walk her to the door. So I helped her out of her car, helped her to the door, and as we were walking up the steps, she screamed, and as I turned around and I got clubbed. I fell on the ground. There was blood everywhere. I was dizzy. He was screaming, "Oh, you're..." Can I say what?
You can tell me anything. At my age, I've heard it all.
I mean, he was saying the equivalent of, "Oh, you're my girl. You're doing this. You're doing that." You know. And as he was, you know, it's kind of a blur of, you know, I was on the ground. Salwa came over to, you know, she was screaming and trying to get him off me. He threw her on the ground, pushed her away. And as I got up, I was very dazed. There was blood all in my eyes. And he was kind of circling me. You know, I've never thrown a punch in my life. And he was circling me, just popping me. So at some point, while I was on the ground, her brother came out of the door and asked what the hell was going on. By that time, Garrett took off. I mean, he went that way towards where Salwa was. I was laying on the ground.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I approached, she ran inside the house. Him and I had some verbal. He came at me, and I won.
Have you had your Y chromosome tested?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. John Hackett says he was escorting home a female friend when he was attacked by her boyfriend, Garrett Shell. John says Garrett beat him with a baseball bat.
Now, you have your photographs, Mr. Shell?
No, ma'am.
You, over here. Bird, show her these pictures, would you please? Yes, sir.
I was just going to say that those pictures were taken at the hospital by the crime scene unit, and I had gone home and taken a shower and changed clothes.
Okay.
So that's after the shower.
You've not seen these pictures, sir, have you?
No.
Did you have any idea what he looked like after this attack?
I heard. I have not seen the pictures.
Well, just hand them over to him. Sure. Now, according to what I read, at some point you were contacted by Mr. Shell's father.
Yes.
And even though this is hearsay, the whole idea of the conversation was that he would pay you $40,000 if you would not prosecute his son because his son was already on parole for another assault. I assume that that assault that you were on parole for, sir, was the assault against this young lady here?
No, ma'am.
Was that on the 5-year term for the assault on the police officer?
Yes, ma'am.
So you had a split sentence, you were paroled, you'd served 2/3 of your time?
I had 2 concurrent sentences, and
Why did you have 2 concurrent sentences, Mr. Shell?
I had another sentence for a check that was a day for day. In Texas, you have state jail felonies.
So what you're telling me, you had a prior case involving a check forgery?
A theft by check, yes, ma'am.
So you had a couple of years left to go in the event that you had a problem.
After I made parole, I had to
You had to stay clean.
Yes, ma'am.
But you were arrested again for the assault on the lovely Miss Agaway over here, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And they didn't violate you on your original parole when you were arrested for assaulting Miss Agaway.
No, ma'am.
I find that curious. Did you have a trial with regard to the assault on Miss Agaway?
Yes, ma'am.
And she testified?
Yes, ma'am.
And you testified that he assaulted you?
Yes, I did.
And they didn't believe you?
They found him guilty on 1 charge.
They did. And what was that charge, Miss Agaway?
It was just for the assault, but there was 3 charges on there.
The lovely Miss Agaway says that you were found guilty on one of those charges, Mr. Shell.
Ma'am, I was not found guilty on an assault. I was found guilty on a domestic dispute.
After a trial?
After a 2-day trial. And I beat the cases.
No, you didn't beat them, sir. You were found guilty of domestic dispute. According to her, one of the charges of assault, according to you, was a domestic dispute. There is no such law on the books, by the way, Mr. Shell, in any jurisdiction that I'm familiar with, that says a domestic dispute is a crime. There is assault, there is harassment, there's battery. Do you understand? But a domestic dispute could be, you know, you forgot to change the roll of toilet paper. That could be a domestic dispute too.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's not actionable in any court. Do you understand?
I understand that, ma'am.
Good. So you weren't found guilty of a domestic dispute.
Ma'am, I was charged with 2 Class A misdemeanor assaults and a Class C ticket, domestic violence.
Right. Domestic violence is a crime. Domestic dispute is not.
Yes, ma'am. Class
So
C.
you were found guilty of domestic violence.
Verbal, not physical, verbal.
Well, but according to the lovely Miss Agaway, she had bruises all over her body. She must have fallen down over herself several times, Mr. Shell. So if you say you didn't touch her, that means she's lying.
And she's lying.
You picked him. Twice.
Wow.
You want to tell me, madam, about when Mr. Hackett walked you home and how he got to look like he looked in those pictures?
He walked me home because I did tell him that I was scared.
Of him?
Of him.
Right.
Okay. And then, so Garrett came out of nowhere and then basically, you know, fought Johnny. I mean...
No.
I mean, Johnny didn't fight back at all.
What did he hit him with?
His fists. There was no weapons there. Not that I saw, because I ran in the house because I was so scared for Johnny that I ran into the house and I called my brother, and then my brother's the one who called 911. I mean, I told Johnny that he had to go to the hospital. I mean, I was like crying.
Good. Now, so my question is, you were appearing on that side.
Actually, I wasn't on anybody's side. I was just here to tell the story. I wasn't on anybody's side.
She's neutral.
She's not neutral. She can't be neutral. She witnessed you assaulting Mr. Hackett, who she says did not even fight back. That's what you just said, right?
Right. I'm just here
Now,
to tell the truth.
Good.
That's
Well,
it.
that's what you just did. Sort of reluctantly, but you did. Sit down. Now I'm up to you, sir, because your answer says, now I am free to fight these false charges, and that's exactly what I plan to do. I'm ready.
I have one question for you, though.
I don't answer questions.
Okay.
I don't answer questions. I've heard his version, and I've heard her version. Now I want your version of what happened on the evening of August 18th.
Can I clear the beginning of what brought this about?
Absolutely not. I don't give a rat's behind what brought it about, sir. What I care about is he's walking her up the path, and you're there.
Yes, ma'am.
Pick it up from there.
Well, actually, we were into an argument, and I was with her earlier that night.
I don't care earlier that night.
Later on that night, I already had a friend call me and told me that she was with him at the bar.
I don't care.
What I'm telling you is, she was with her best friend's boyfriend, asks him to escort her home, knowing that I'm going to be there. I'm not knowing about him, he's not knowing about me. So, pretty much, when we got there, she probably would have known about what I'm going to see, and I was distressed about it. No, I did not start the fight. I approached, she ran inside the house, and at that point, this is when him and I had some verbal, and he came at me, and I won.
Have you had your Y chromosome tested?
Ma'am,
Listen to me very carefully, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this your girlfriend?
Yes, ma'am.
You think she loves you?
Yes, ma'am.
She took you back after you beat her up? Listen to me very carefully, Mr. Shell.
Yes, ma'am.
She loves you.
Yes, ma'am.
Live in the same place?
Yes, ma'am.
You live together. So you slept together last night?
Yes, ma'am.
Because you love each other?
Yes, ma'am.
She told me a second ago that you beat him up and he didn't fight back.
I know what she told you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, I understand.
So is she a liar?
Yes, ma'am, she's a liar.
And so she lied about that, and she lied about you beating her up when you were arrested for assault. Do you understand where we're going here, sir?
Mm-hmm.
He's big trouble. You understand that?
I do.
Big trouble. You have children?
I do have a daughter.
Who does she live with?
She lives with she lives with me.
Who does she live with?
She lives with me.
And him?
We don't live together. We used to, we don't anymore.
You just told me that you slept together last night.
Yeah, because we had the same flight. That's the only reason why.
Well, I fly with a lot of people. I don't sleep with them. Miss Hathaway, I don't know how much of what you're telling me is the truth or not. All I can tell you is that there are only so far two innocent people, and that's Mr. Hackett over here and your child. Now, I don't know if your child lives with you, lives with your mother, lives with the child's father, but I can tell you that the child should not be living with you because your judgment is so askew and so warped that you should really not be rearing a child. That's the judgment of somebody who's been in the business for 30 years. As far as your case is concerned, Mr. Hackett, I don't know why you would sell yourself short for $40,000. I would have liked to have seen this man prosecuted and go back to prison, not only on this assault, but violated on his parole and gone back to serve the 2 years he's got on his old assault case on a police officer. There are people in this world that are sociopaths. They don't understand how it feels to live in a community of other civilized people. Sometimes it's because they are short of stature and they feel as if they have to be aggressive. That sometimes happens. Whatever it is, you shouldn't have sold yourself short. Mr. Shell, I don't know whether you're able to be rehabilitated. Quite frankly, I doubt it.
Ma'am, you haven't even let me present my case at all.
Listen to me, sir. You told me that you got there about the same time she did. You fought with him. Listen to me, quiet. You fought with him and you won. That's what you said. You said this was a fight and you won. That's your defense. I don't believe you. It's as clear as that. And it's my job to make a decision by the required quantum of proof, close your mouth, which is more proof than not who I believe. And quite frankly, Mr. Shell, it isn't even close. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000.
You didn't even let me explain my case.
Yeah, this is case number 5 on the calendar in the matter of Collins versus Daniel. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated.
Ms. Collins, you and Mr. Daniel were boyfriend and girlfriend. It is your claim that after a night of both of you drinking, Mr. Daniel assaulted you, caused you severe injuries. You were treated in a hospital. You want him to pay your medical bills, and then some. Mr. Daniel said that you were both pretty drunk, that you were as aggressive as he was. He has no recollection of assaulting you to the extent that you claim that you were assaulted, and that you even saw each other subsequently. Is that right, sir? How long were the two of you dating?
We've been dating probably for about a month at the time when the incident happened.
You have a drinking problem?
No, ma'am.
You have a drinking problem?
No, ma'am.
Well, it seemed to me that if two people get loaded to the extent that they can't remember what's happening, they have a problem.
I remember everything that happened, Your Honor.
I remember everything that happened, Your Honor.
Do you?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Daniel?
Mechanic.
And you?
I'm a nurse.
Okay, Ms. Collins, let's hear about the assault. It happened in February of 2005?
Yes, ma'am, February 12th.
Go ahead, let me hear.
We had been going out for about a month, and we went out with some of my friends out to a couple of clubs. We both had been drinking, and then we closed the clubs and went back to his house. My intentions were just to go there and go to sleep because him and I had been arguing and been having some problems. I found out that he was married. He told me he had been married and then came out slowly telling me he's still married, in the process of getting a divorce. Then found out that they weren't in the process of getting any kind of divorce. So when we went back to his house, he was making advances towards me, you know, to, you know, do something sexual, and that's not what I wanted.
Your Honor,
so
she's lying.
Shh, you're going to have a chance later.
So
I don't want you to look down. I want you to look at me. I want to look at your eyes, Miss Collins. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am. Everything at this point was fine up until when he started doing that.
Well, what did you go back to his house for if you were drinking and he was drinking?
Because up until this point, there hadn't been any problems.
Well, you closed the clubs. It must have been very late.
Yeah, him and I had
Don't
been...
look down. You look at me.
Him and I had been hanging out.
Listen to me.
And
you just told me you closed the clubs, which means it was very late.
Yes, ma'am.
And the two of you had been drinking. You went to more than one club.
Right.
So then why, if you didn't want to engage in any sort of intimate relationship, would you go back to his house rather than go back to your house?
Because there was no way for me to get back to my house because both of us had been drinking.
Well, how did you get to his house?
He drove. He drove. I mean, my friend's house was only a block away from his house, so, I mean, he drove.
Well, when you say you closed the clubs,
Yes.
you closed the clubs and went to your friend's house?
Yes, who lives not too far
just a
from the
second.
club.
Well, you didn't tell me that. You said you closed the clubs and went to his house. So you closed the clubs and went to your friend's house, who lives a block away from him.
Right.
Why didn't you stay at your friend's house? Is not an answer.
Because we were going to spend the night together. I mean, I didn't...
Who was going to spend the night together?
Him and I were going to spend the night at his
Well, what
house.
were you going to do? Play canasta?
Just go to sleep. We were just going to go to sleep, Your Honor.
Why couldn't you go to sleep at your friend's house?
It's a party house. There was too many people there. I don't crash at party houses. I wanted to stay with who I consider my boyfriend.
Okay, I'm just getting there. All right, so now you drive to his house.
Yes.
Keep going.
Okay, so then he started coming on to me. I just wanted to go to sleep. I just wanted to go to sleep, Your Honor. And when I tried to leave, he blocked the door.
Where were you going?
I was going to call someone to come pick me up. I just wanted to leave the house and go out front, use my cell phone, call somebody to come pick me up. And he would not let me leave. He blocked the door. He pushed me down. I got up. He pushed me back down. And then he pushed me over towards the bed. Every single time when I got up, he kept pushing me down. And then that progressed. He hit me. He smacked me first. And then he hit me in the side of my head. And that just, I tried to fight back. And then he just ended up choking me, telling me to go to sleep and that I wasn't going anywhere and cursing at me and stuff like that. And that was the last thing I remember, him telling me to go to sleep and that I wasn't going anywhere and that this is what it felt like to be strangled.
What do you mean? It was the last thing you remember. What is that? I don't understand. It's the last thing you remember.
Well, he was choking me and then when I woke up, it was about 7 o'clock in the morning.
So he choked you, you passed out, and then you woke up how many hours later?
It was probably about 4.5 hours later.
Okay, when you woke up, what did you do?
I woke him up and told him to take me to my car and that I was thinking about pressing charges against him. And he told me that it was my fault. And I didn't say anything else to him.
So where did you go?
He dropped me off at my friend's house. And
A block away?
Yes.
Couldn't you walk there?
It's probably a little bit further than a block. It's in the same neighborhood.
Took you to your friend's house, and what happened next?
I went inside. I didn't say anything to my friends because I know if I would have told them, they probably would have...
Don't speculate what they would have done. Keep going.
Well, I didn't say anything and I left.
Where did you go?
I went home and spoke to a couple family members of mine. And I explained to them what happened and they said that I should go to the hospital. I didn't want to go to the hospital because I didn't have insurance.
What were you going to the hospital for?
Because the side of my head was severely swollen and I had blood coming out of the side of my ear and my jaw wasn't meeting.
You mean and your friends didn't say anything to you when you went into the house?
I kind of hid my face a little bit.
Okay. You have photographs?
I don't have any pictures because at the time...
The answer is you don't have any photographs?
No, ma'am.
Do you have a hospital report?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see it. Okay. Now, after this incident happened, you went out with him again.
Yes, he called me, and he seemed very genuinely sorry. He was concerned with what condition I was in when I went to the hospital and everything, and I told him I ended up having to go. I was seriously hurt.
Well, they found that you had a facial bruise. They did a CAT scan. They found nothing.
Yes, ma'am.
But the main thrust of this bill is the $2,500 CAT scan. That's what bloated it to $3,600.
Yes.
Okay. So you told him that you had this bruise, and he said
that he would pay for all of it. I told him that I would feel better about him sitting in jail, and he said that I would be doing the right thing if that was the route that I took, and that he would do anything he could to make it up to me after he got out.
Fine. So when did you go out with him again?
A month later.
Why?
Because the guy that I knew was very sweet, and he treated me really good, and I just thought that he had an alcohol problem that changed him into somebody else.
Well, you told me about 5 minutes ago that you had been arguing with him a lot because you found that he lied to you, that he was married, that he wasn't in the process of getting a divorce, and he's a drunk, and he has blackouts or he doesn't know what he's doing, and he gets violent. All this doesn't sound to me like worthy of a second date.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I always love it when they bury themselves. Do you know what I mean?
Shooting fish in a barrel.
Shooting fish in a barrel. All you got to do is let him talk.
And later today,
What do you have that suggests that he took your car?
I specifically remember him wearing a hat, and I found this hat in the car, which is the hat that he was wearing that night.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Emily Collins says ex-boyfriend Demetrius Daniel beat her up during a night of heavy drinking.
My question to you is, you just said to me that the person that you knew, even though he lied to you about being married, he lied to you about getting a divorce, he assaulted you to the extent you had to go to the emergency room. He was a sweet guy, and you felt that it was only because of the alcohol that changed his personality. That's pretty much what you just testified to. Then why in the world would a relatively intelligent woman go out with him drinking again?
We went out to dinner, and he had only had like 1 or 2 drinks while we were sitting there having dinner.
And what about you?
Same.
You drank together.
We had
All
wine
right.
with dinner.
How about a Diet Coke? What?
What? No.
Yeah, that probably would have been the right
Give me a
thing to
break.
do.
I
You're
know.
right. You're right.
I know.
Your
They
Honor.
keep me in business, so I shouldn't complain. Now I'm up to you.
The truth of the matter.
You know me. I love the truth.
Yes, Your Honor.
If you don't tell me the truth, you're going to be eating your shoes.
Yes. Yes, Your Honor. Okay, the whole night started. We was at Mojo's. This was the club we closed. When we got in the car driving back to her friend's house, we were supposed to get in her car, but we couldn't find her keys from the incident that happened at the club with her throwing my leather coat on the floor twice to lose her keys.
Get to your house.
Okay. We get to my house. Okay. She's passed out in the car. That's why she doesn't remember how we got to my house. The point is,
Your Honor,
I
that's
took
not
her.
true.
Up. Go ahead.
She's passed out in the back seat. All right. Reason we didn't take her car, couldn't find her keys. I pick her up. I told her inside the house. I put her in the bed. I take her shoes off. I go to cut the light off. She's up and angry, yelling, screaming, pushing me. And I'm just looking at her like, where's this coming from? I wasn't to the fact that I was drunk enough not to drive. I wasn't drunk enough not to handle the situation. The fact of the matter was, she was the aggressive. She started the whole aggression. She started the whole violence of slapping, being very aggressive. It went from shoving me to pushing her, holding her, pushing her back on the bed, telling her, not do this, you're drunk, lay down, go to sleep, sleep it off, that's all it is, you're drunk. She gets back up, she slaps me. I slap her back, she punched me, I punch her back, and we go back into the whole argument of going back and forth again and again, to the fact that I hold her down on the bed and tell her and beg and plead with her not to keep being aggressive. Just lay down, go to sleep, sleep it off.
Okay.
To that point, we woke up in the morning after.
All right. So let me dissect for you, Mr. Daniel, what you have just told me. What you have just told me was that you were not so drunk that you couldn't drive.
Yes. Yes, Your Honor.
So you were sober enough to withstand the sobriety test.
Yes, Your Honor.
Fine. And she was so drunk that she was passed out in back of the car.
Yes, Your Honor.
Then you take her home, and
My
she
house.
starts to act aggressive.
Yes, Your Honor.
She punches you, you punch her back.
Yes, Your Honor.
This is the person who was so drunk, this is what you tell me, that she didn't know what was going on. You, on the other hand, are sober.
Yes, Your Honor.
I always love it when they bury themselves. Do you know what I mean?
Shooting fish in a barrel.
Shooting fish in a barrel. All you got to do is let them talk. They make up some cock and bull story, right?
Yep.
That they say, well, this is going to work. She was the aggressor. I could drive because I was okay, right? You can't assault somebody when they're so drunk that they don't know what's going on, Mr. Daniel.
Yes, Your Honor.
You understand where we're going now?
Yes, Your Honor.
You're the sober one. She's drunk. That's according to you. You're the defendant.
Yes, Your Honor.
When she punched you, you should have gotten up, should have gone downstairs, should have gotten in your car, go to a friend's house and say, listen, I'm not going to stay with this lady. She's out of it. She's assaultive. She's nuts. This is the way she gets when she's drunk. I don't want to have anything to do with her. I'm certainly not going to hit her because she doesn't know what she's doing.
Yes, Your Honor. I'm not saying I didn't make a mistake, Your Honor.
Good. Mistakes cost.
Yes, Your Honor.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,600. That's all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I would describe it as her friends telling me that night that since she's drinking and she's being aggressive, that she's Diablo.
That's just something my friends say joking around. It's not even like that.
And I'm like, okay, that's the devil.
It's just my little playful nickname between my friends.
And it turned out to be that way.
The whole situation is he drank more than he could handle, and that's all it comes down to.
I learned from my mistakes.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Damon versus Ressa, step forward, please.
21-year-old bartender Amber Damon is suing her former friend, 21-year-old subcontractor Samuel Ressa, for crashing her car, forcing her to drop out of fashion school.
According to what I read in your complaint, on the evening of January 26, 2005, you were all out drinking. You had a car. You drove to a bar. You were drinking and had too much to drink. A lot of other people were drinking too. Somebody wanted to go home. Somebody by the name of Jason. Who's Jason? Raise your hand. You still drink, Jason?
Yes.
Yeah. How did I know that? How did I know that? Jason wanted to go home. You told the defendant, could you take him home? And you gave the defendant your car keys to take Jason home.
He'd already had the car keys.
Whatever. He didn't steal the car keys from you. You gave him the keys. He took Jason home, came back to the bar,
Yes, Your Honor.
and that's the last time you saw your car. The car was subsequently found. It was wrecked a little bit, and it was taken to impound, and you couldn't get your books and stuff for school out of the trunk so that you couldn't go to school, and you ended up losing tuition because you ended up backing out of school for that semester. A whole series of events that you believe should be visited on Mr. Reese's doorstep, right?
Correct.
Because he didn't take good care of the car.
Yes.
Was the car a used car?
Yes.
Was it insured?
Mm-hmm.
Did you get insurance money for it?
No, because the towing place sold it without the lien notice, so they're going to end up having to pay for it.
So you're off the hook with regard to the car.
Yes.
So all you're suing him for is for the trauma that you incurred as a result of missing school because you couldn't get to your books that were inside the car.
Yes. There's more to it than that, though.
Let's hear it fast.
Well, we would go out every Wednesday, and I'd had a couple beers, so I didn't feel comfortable driving. And I thought I was being responsible by asking him to take Jason over to our house. And then he came back safe and sound, and later on I didn't plan on leaving, so I didn't ask for my keys back or anything. And he had wanted to leave, but I just assumed that he was getting a ride or whatever, and he apparently took my car.
It's not what he says. He says he walked home. It was a couple of blocks away.
Yes, Your Honor.
I have stuff maybe not proving, but it really looks like he took my car.
Well, what do you have that suggests that he took your car later?
Well, I was going to fashion design school, so I remember what people wear, and I specifically remember him wearing a hat when he came back after dropping Jason off, and I found this hat in the car, which is the hat that he was wearing that night.
Miss Damon, I want you to listen to me very carefully, my dear. There is no question in my mind that under the scenario that you gave me, that you had given him the keys to the car, and that was the last time you saw the car, and the car had in fact been in an accident. I think I would have been prepared, despite the fact that Mr. Risa says I walked home, to say it was your responsibility to safeguard this car. Based upon what I read in the papers, the car was found with the keys in the car, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Therefore, if somebody found the keys, they had to be very smart to find the keys and say, I think I want to go try the ignitions of all the cars, and I'm going to go check all the cars and see if any of this fits. So I think I would have been able to say, with a fair degree of certainty, that the defendant was responsible for your car, but you have no out-of-pocket expenses for your car. You want him to pay for your school tuition. And I'm telling you, Miss Damon, you have to be more resourceful, my dear. There are methods that you can use to get your books out of the trunk of the car so that you can study and go to school without dropping out of school. That's not his fault.
There was no way that I could get them because they were no longer there. And there was also, the police department was throwing me around too because it wasn't registered in my name yet because I hadn't even made a payment on it. I just bought in the car, not even a month before that. So they were telling me I wasn't even going to be able to look at it.
Well, you managed to get the hat. Did you go to your teachers and say, listen, I need a little time, I have to get new books?
We were almost to midterms and all of the projects led off of each other. So there was no way that I could make them up, and they told me I had to withdraw for that semester.
That's not Mr. Reese's fault, Ms. Damon. I can't legitimately find that your dropping out of school was the proximate cause of Mr. Reese's actions. It doesn't work that way. You have to take a certain amount of responsibility for taking your car, drinking, giving the keys to somebody else. That's partially your responsibility. I would have said Mr. Reese was responsible if he had any out-of-pocket expenses for the car, but not for your school tuition. Sorry, case is dismissed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Parties are excused. Case number 41 on the calendar in the matter of Pincheck versus Azure. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Ms. Pincheck, you and the defendant don't know each other, but were involved in an incident that can be described as a road rage incident. It is your claim that Mr. Azure caused this accident, which damaged your car. He says it was you who caused the accident. He said that you hit him in the rear. He is counterclaiming because he alleges that because of your conduct, he was forced to drop out of school, to have his education delayed, and he has a counterclaim. When did this incident happen, Ms. Pincheck?
February 3rd, 2005.
What time of the day or evening?
Approximately 10:30 in the morning.
And where were you going?
I was on my way to work.
Where do you work?
Sacred Heart Medical Building.
What kind of a car were you driving?
Honda Civic, 97.
What kind of car were you driving?
I was driving a 87 Toyota Corolla.
Where were you going?
I was going home. I was leaving school.
You had been in school that morning?
Yeah, I just got out at 10:20, and I was on my way home.
Okay, so Ms. Pincheck, you tell me your version of what happened, please.
I was driving westbound on Mission.
Show me on your diagram, please.
This is
Which
me
color
here.
are you?
I'm B.
You're blue.
Yes. As I'm driving here, there's a bus that's moving. He pulls out from behind the bus and cuts me off right here. So I went into this turn lane to avoid the accident. I'm attempting to get back over, but he's not letting me. So at this point, after I honked my horn, he then let me in, which as I came here, and he was a bit further down here, this is where we hit because he was driving erratically and he slammed on his brakes. And to avoid hitting him again, I turned this way. And that's how the damage occurred on that side of the car.
Okay, so what you're saying is he cut you off.
Yes.
You had to get back into a driving lane.
Yes.
Ultimately, he let you back in the driving lane, but then slammed on his brakes, causing you to swerve.
Yes.
And that's how the back of his car and the front of your car were damaged.
Correct.
Okay, fine. I will hear you.
Okay, it started with the bus stop. There was actually another car in front of me. The first car proceeded to go around the bus, made it around. I looked, there was nobody behind me. I proceeded into this lane. I was all the way up here, and all of a sudden I heard a series of honking. She was in a hurry to get somewhere, and I just wasn't going fast enough for her. I looked into my rearview mirror. She's on the cell phone, driving, honking her horn, and then she proceeds to go on my driver's side to pass me. She must have thought that was another lane, because it widens out there for about 50 feet, and then it closes out real quick, and it goes right back into the two lanes. And she proceeded to pass me, Your Honor. She was all the way up as far as my back door on my driver's side. And as soon as I seen that, I started to slow down to let her proceed so she could proceed to pass, but she couldn't do it because there's oncoming traffic coming. So then she stopped to try to swing back around to get back behind me. And I feel that it was all her fault. She was on the cell phone. If she wasn't talking on that cell phone, maybe she could have used that other hand to flip the blinker and switch into the lane that was completely open.
Okay, Now, you had some damage to your car?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of damage did you have to your car?
Do you want to see pictures? Mm-hmm. I have two different estimates. The pictures are on the back of each page of the estimate.
What happened when the police arrived?
One officer talked to me, and I told him the story, and basically he wrote out the report, and that was it. He said that he attempted to contact my witness.
Do you have a
Nobody
police report?
Yes, I do.
Can I see it, please? You were cited for an improper lane usage.
I didn't commit it. It was found non-committed.
Did you have a hearing with regard to that?
Yes, with extraordinary circumstances. My witness was there to attend as well.
What is your name, sir?
Sonny Shaver.
Stand up, please. Do you know the plaintiff?
I never met her till that day.
You were driving on the 3rd of February?
I was the oncoming traffic, Your Honor.
Show me where your car was.
I was here. This island stops and, like he said, becomes 2 double yellow lines that narrow down back to a 4-lane street. When I saw him, she was behind him. He went about halfway into this lane with half his car. Then all of a sudden he came back and she dived to the left to avoid him, and I thought, oh, going to get hit head on here. She slammed on the brakes in and cut it to the left. He cut it to the left across the double yellow line and stopped, and she hit him. So I drove around the block and said, I'll be a witness for you.
And you gave her your name?
Gave her my business card.
And you did come down with her to testify on her behalf?
Yes, ma'am.
It was very nice of you.
Well, I saw she rear-ended him, and that's almost always automatically her fault, and I felt it wasn't, so.
And you and Miss Pinchuk didn't know each other?
No, ma'am.
That's totally false. I had no reason to turn. I was a mile down my road. She was reckless driving. I was trying to avoid her.
Well, I'm looking at you, Mr. Azure, because Mr. Shaver doesn't know the plaintiff, right?
I can't tell you.
And when you stopped, did you see Mr. Shaver there that day?
No, he was not there.
Did you see him?
He was yelling at me, some foul things.
No.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
Nope. He told me, you can't frickin' stop in the middle of the road. And
So,
I was like,
just a
"Whatever."
second, Mr. Azure.
Huh?
Mr. Azure. Shh. Mr. Azure, you just said you didn't see him there that day.
Well,
how could you tell me that you didn't see him there that day, and then 2 seconds later tell me what he was yelling at you?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I do not believe that it was him. There was a guy there
Listen to me, that was him. He
Was
didn't
it?
say, yeah, it was him.
No, there was a guy that didn't want to wait
Listen
for
to
the
me.
police officers.
Listen to me, it was him.
And later today,
He didn't steal the car keys. He didn't grab them out of her pocket. She was drunk, he was drunk. They're just lucky they're not dead.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Bobby Pinchuk says fellow motorist Charles Azure owes for an accident caused by his reckless driving. Charles claims the accident was Bobby's fault.
All right, now let's get to your counterclaim, Mr. Azure. I'll hear you.
There was a blonde-haired gentleman. I do not believe that it was him. There was the guy there
Listen to me, that was him. He
Was
didn't
it?
say, yeah, it was him.
No, there was a guy that
Listen-
didn't want to wait
listen
for
to
the
me.
police officers,
Listen to me.
and he took off.
Listen to me. It was him. Let's just get to your counterclaim, sir.
Okay, after this accident, I just had surgery on my knee, and I'm in criminal justice at the Spokane Community College. I have no reason to jeopardize my career. My knee went into the dashboard, and it swelled up my knee. I got the doctor report, and I took it to my instructors at school, and they put me on hold. They ended up giving me a Z grade.
What does that have to do with this accident?
Because my knee swollen, because I got injured in there, and I couldn't pursue my criminal justice. They put me on hold. They said I had to get doctors. I can't get released from the doctors. I've had 4 surgeries on my knee, Your Honor, and...
Do you have any surgeries on your knee after this incident, sir?
No, I had it August 29th, 04.
The last one was
The
in
last one
August.
was
The last one was in
10/29/04.
Okay. Well,
Just
maybe
like
you're in
4
the-
months prior to this
Maybe you're in the
accident.
wrong, you're pursuing the wrong career, sir.
I'm not going as a police officer. We're opening a bail bonds company, and we're going to pursue that.
You're going to be a bail bondsman.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. All right, Mr. Azure. Are you going back to school for
They
criminal
let me
justice?
back in. I just had my appointment with the dean on May 5th, and they said I can go back in
I'm very
in
glad.
September.
Okay. Who is this person?
This is my wife, Joni.
What does she have to do with this case?
She's the one that took me to the hospital, saw my knee, how it swelled. I had to be in a neck brace. I had to wear my splint again. I had to use crutches.
Just for my own information, sir, did you speak to an attorney about these injuries?
Yes, I did.
And did the attorney take your case against
No,
Ms.
he didn't.
Pinchuk?
Because he said I had a pre-existing knee injury.
That plus a couple of other things, Mr. Asher. One of the things that would be death to your case is this gentleman right over here, because he's known as an independent witness. He is absolutely correct when he says that when someone rear-ends someone else in their car, unless there are really extenuating circumstances, it's always your fault. Those are the facts. You understand that, Mr. Asher?
Yes, her insurance...
Unless, Mr. Asher, you have an independent witness who says that you were driving recklessly. That's what he says. And he's got no axe to grind. He took a couple of days off from work. He actually came back to a scene of an accident where most people would just keep going.
I never seen him, Your Honor.
Well, maybe you just heard him. And there is no question in my... Listen to me, I'm speaking.
Okay.
There's no question in my mind that he was there. There's no question in my mind that he chose to come back to the scene of the accident because he was concerned that Miss Pinchuk would be blamed for the accident because it was a rear-end hit. He took the time after she contacted him to go down and testify before the administrative law judge at the hearing regarding the ticket. The ticket was dismissed, as is your counterclaim, sir. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of damage to the car, $1,400. Thank you very much. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She found that I was at fault, but I just don't feel that I was.
It was his fault. He knows it was his fault, and that's what he gets for trying to lie.
She was totally out of control, calling me every name in the book.
At the point where he realized that I was cussing him out and I was honking my horn, I need to get back over, that's when he got mad.
On her cell phone, driving right behind me, she was so close to my bumper, I could see the whites of her eyes.
Cell phone doesn't have anything to do with it. I'm a multitasker. I'm excellent.
Whatever.
Don't be mad because you lost.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Spandy versus Greta, step forward, please.
Computer operator Tim Spandy is suing his daughter's former friend, 18-year-old event coordinator Tom Grether, for wrecking his wife's car. Tom says he was driving because Tim's daughter was drunk.
Mr. Spandy, this your daughter?
Yes, it is.
Your daughter was driving your car?
No, she wasn't.
Whose car was she using?
It was my wife's car.
So your daughter was driving your wife's car with your permission. She goes to a party or some sort of gathering, and this young man was there. She got too drunk to drive home. She asked him to drive home. He was also drunk.
That's
he
correct.
totaled the car. You want him to pay for the car.
Yes, that's correct, ma'am.
And Mr. Grether says, well, he has certain responsibility. He doesn't have total responsibility. Your daughter has partial responsibility. Okay. When was this party?
February 13th.
At a house?
Yeah.
Did you know Mr. Grether before the party?
Yes, I did.
Okay. How much did you drink?
I think I had like 4 cups of beer.
Why did you drink if you were driving?
I was planning on staying over.
So why didn't you stay over?
Because there's some drama about missing pieces, and then
Missing pieces? What?
Bongs.
What is that?
Stuff you smoke marijuana out of.
There was drama about some drugs.
Yeah.
What kind of drama was there about drugs?
One kid accused one of Tom's friends of stealing piece.
So there was some drama, so you wanted to go home?
Well, because all of Tom's friends were leaving, and Tom invited us to the party. We didn't know the people whose house it was at, so we all decided to leave and go back to Tom's.
And you were too drunk to drive?
Yeah.
So you really didn't have good judgment?
Yeah.
What about Tom?
Well, my friends said they gave him a drunk test and see if he could walk a line and if he had slurred speech, and he said he stopped drinking 2 hours before that.
So you had your friends, your drunken friends, give him an alcohol sobriety test. Is that what you're telling me, Miss Spandy?
Yes.
And your slightly inebriated friends told you that he was sufficiently sober to drive your mother's car?
Yeah.
Tell me how you totaled her mother's car.
We were driving down a dirt and gravel road, and the car had spun out, and we had crashed into a tree.
All right, now we'll hear you.
Yeah. Before we started driving, he decided to whip a donut in a cul-de-sac, which was a dirt road. And I'm like, Tom, you need to stop. And he was like, okay, I used to drive a Ford Contour, I have total control. And so then he stops, and then he was like, hey, look at this. And I saw his hand reaching for the emergency brake, but I don't really know if he pulled it or whatever. It just happened too fast. We lost control, and then we ran into a tree.
I was only kidding. I actually never got grasp of the emergency brake. 3 other vehicles ahead of me had spun out of the exact same spot that I had spoke with afterwards. They were all
Whatever, what I
driving
don't
SUVs.
understand, Mr. Spandy, is why you think your daughter is not at least partially responsible for what happened that night.
Well, for one thing, the defendant here, he was driving with a suspended license. He knew he was not supposed to be behind the driver's wheel at all.
He was drunk. Put your hand down. They were all drinking and doing marijuana.
I understand that.
Mr. Spandy, your daughter took her mother's car and acted irresponsibly with it. She drank. She was probably smoking marijuana. She gave the car to somebody who was given a field sobriety test by a bunch of other teenage alcoholics. And you think she bears no responsibility?
Well, he should have known right from wrong. I mean...
He was wrong. There's no question he was wrong. You don't take your mother's car and then drink.
I agree.
And you don't take your mother's car and then drink and do bongs or whatever they are. What you do is, if you think that you're going to drink, you say, Dad, would you drive me to the party and pick me up? Or if you don't intend to drink and then you go to the party and you drink, you say, give me the phone, I'm going to call my father to come pick me up. She could have done that too, right?
Yes, and that's what she's been instructed to do.
But you mean before this incident, you told her, if you drink, call us, we'll come pick you up, right? So she did the wrong thing.
Yes.
That's all I'm asking you, Mr. Spandy. I'm not saying that Mr. Grether here is going to get off scot-free, but what I'm telling you is your daughter bears some responsibility for what happened that night.
I agree. I mean, she was in the wrong, but for somebody of his age, a little bit older, selling alcohol and all that other stuff
Just a
going
second.
on, that
How old is your daughter?
17.
And how old are you?
I'll be 19 in a few weeks.
Listen, she's 17, he's 18. You know how much longer it takes a boy to mature than it takes a girl to mature?
Yes.
I just want you to take a look at him. Take a look at him. You'll understand what I'm talking about.
Yes, I understand completely.
Do you understand what I'm talking about?
Yes.
All right. So don't tell me that he's so much older and is selling liquor. She's 17 years old. She shouldn't be drinking 5 beers, right?
I understand that.
Bad judgment.
Yes, very.
And if you start...
May I please add on the...
Don't say anything.
Sorry.
All right. Start with this premise, Mr. Spandy. But for the fact that your daughter did the wrong thing, you would not be standing here today.
Correct.
She did the wrong thing 3 times. She took the car. She drank.
Yes.
Instead of calling you to come pick her up, she gave the car keys to him. But for her actions, he, who's not any older than she is, would not have control of the car. He didn't steal the car keys. He didn't grab them out of her pocket. She was drunk, he was drunk. They're just lucky they're not dead.
Yes.
So the car was totaled.
Yes.
Did you have insurance?
I only had liability, no collision, so the insurance company would not pay for it.
When did you purchase the car?
I purchased it 8/25/04.
And how much did you pay for it?
We paid a little over $4,300. Other charges incurred that night was towing fee and pound lot, and that was over $200.
So you paid $43 plus another $2.
Yes.
Half $4,500 is $2,250. $2,250 is his responsibility. The other $2,250 is your daughter's responsibility. I suggest that you see to it that she takes care of it.
Oh, she's already taken care of the other car we have purchased.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,250. That's all.
Parties of Domzowski versus Wilson. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
Ms. Domzowski, according to your complaint, Mr. Wilson used to be your boyfriend. He's not your boyfriend anymore, and he assaulted you twice. After he assaulted you, I assume you had nothing to do with him.
That's correct.
How long were you involved with him before this assault?
Well, I dated him originally back when I was in high school.
How old are you now?
I'm 22. When I had first dated him, I was 16. And then we broke up, and we got back together in August 11th of 2004.
When was the assault?
January 10th, 2005.
Tell me about it.
Well, Brian and I were at a bar, and we had gotten into an argument. He mentioned something about a friend of his who I had dated while we were separated, and how he was going to come back into town, and he wanted to see how I was going to react to his friend being back in town to see if we're going to try to reunite.
Mr. Wilson, you're going to get a chance.
Okay.
Right?
Yes, ma'am.
So we were arguing about that, and I told him, I wouldn't cheat on you. I care too much about you. And so he left the bar. He wound up leaving. So I went after him to make amends, you know.
Why would you go after him to make amends? What had you done wrong?
I hadn't done anything wrong. I was just trying to talk to him, you know, just to make sure, you know, that we were okay, because I didn't want it to end on that.
What had you been drinking?
A beer, a Corona.
And you?
A Corona.
How many?
I had like 1 or 2.
Let's say 2.
Okay.
What about you?
I had probably about 1.5 before I got fed up.
Let's go to 2.
2.
So you've had a couple of beers and you're arguing at the bar. You couldn't argue at home?
That's how it goes every time we went out. Every time we went out, it was a big scene.
Okay. So now you're outside trying to make amends for something that you didn't do. What happened outside?
Outside, I went to my car to retrieve his jacket because he was like, I'm walking home, and I offered him a ride, and he refused. So
what did you say? You said, don't walk, I'll drive you home?
Yes, I said, I will take you to the house. And
how far is the house from the bar?
About 5 minutes driving.
How long walking?
I don't know, like a half an hour maybe. I'm not really sure.
How long a walk is it?
Oh, half hour.
Good. So we agree on that. So you wanted to walk home.
Yeah.
So even though he's walking home without his jacket, you went to the car, got his jacket, and followed him?
Yes.
Go ahead.
That's when we started arguing some more. He pushed me. I went into a tree. My face was bloody.
How did your face get bloody?
I was scratched up. He hit me.
You didn't say he hit you. You said he pushed you into a tree.
Yeah,
when did he hit you?
He pushed me into a tree, and he hit me also afterwards.
He hit you with an open hand or a closed hand?
Open hand.
What happened then?
I was walking along the street by the bar, and I was spitting blood. I had blood coming from my mouth, so that's when I called my sister, and I needed her to come pick me up to give me a ride back to my car because I had walked a little. It was a distance when I was walking with him because we were talking.
You were talking or fighting?
Well, we were fighting.
Go ahead.
And I was crying, spitting up blood. My face was all bloody, so I had my sister come pick me up.
How long did it take her to get there?
She was at the bar as well, so it took her like 2 minutes. She was there real quick, so she heard how upset I was.
So you and your sister came in 2 separate cars?
Yes.
She came, picked you up in her car, and what did you do when she picked you up in the car?
She was cleaning my face. We cleaned my face off.
And then? And
then I went back over to the house to collect my belongings to leave. And he came in, he had a piece of pizza in the microwave, and he intentionally threw it.
Just a sec, hold it. You're home first, is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
And then he came home?
He came home while I was packing my belongings.
How did the pizza get into the microwave?
The pizza was already there, Your Honor.
Pizza was in the house already, and he was taking it out to heat it up?
Yes.
So he heated up the pizza in the microwave. Go ahead.
And then we continued arguing, and that's when he intentionally threw the pizza at my face.
How did he do that?
He had the pizza in his hand, and he threw it.
And it hit your face, and it burned your face?
Yes.
Okay. So he left the bar, Amy, to get away from the argument and was walking home. So what I want to know is how the argument continued.
We were arguing about financial problems.
How did it start? Who said what to whom?
I believe it was I who had said something in regards to the financial.
That sounds right. So what did you say financial?
Basically that I do a lot for him and he doesn't respect me. You know, basically trying to show him that why would I cheat on him when I'm going grocery shopping, all the bills are in my name.
So you wanted to continue the discussion?
Yes.
You weren't
I wasn't trying to argue.
You wanted to continue the discussion, not just pack up and leave, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and he's sitting there. He's not saying a word to you.
No, he was saying things.
Not before you approached him to start the discussion again, right? I'm just figuring out what's happening here, Amy.
Okay, that's correct.
Do you understand? Mm-hmm. I'm not making any excuses for him if he hurt you. I want you to get real with what was happening that night. What was happening that night was you weren't letting it go. Because if you're assaulted and you call your sister because you were so upset and your sister comes to get you in the car, then you say to her, do me a favor, follow me to Mom's house because I'm going to stay there. Tomorrow I'll get the police and go over and pick up my stuff. But if you want to go back and continue the discussion with him, and you knew he was going home because he said, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I don't want to be involved with you anymore. I'm walking home to cool off. So you knew he was going home, and you followed him home.
No, because I figured that I would get there quicker than he would and have my stuff already packed and ready to leave.
So let's see what we have. We have a timeline here. You call your sister on the phone. She has to get out to the parking lot, get into her car, start the car, come and pick you up. A couple of minutes. Then you said she helped clean you up because you were bleeding. Let's say that took another 10 minutes. So now you got 5 minutes before he's going to be home.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you go home anyway. So you expected him to be home. There's no question in my mind. So don't tell me you didn't expect him to be home yet. You expected him to be home. And you wanted to continue the discussion because you weren't ready to let it go.
Because I didn't want to be accused of something that I would never do.
What difference does it make? Somebody hits you in the face, as you allege he hit you in the face. Who cares whether he accuses you of being Matahari? What difference does it make? You want to get away from him.
Yes.
You don't go back into a situation where there's been, according to you, violence, and start the discussion all over again by telling him, why would I want to do something bad to you? I cook for you, I clean for you, I work for you, I do everything else for you. That's what you were telling him, right?
Yes. Why would you do this to me? Basically, that's what I was trying to say, Your Honor.
What difference does it make?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
How old are you?
27.
27. I'm a few years older than you are.
You don't look
and
it.
You're very, very sweet, Mr. Wilson. It's not going to help you any.
And later today,
You could have been married to this warped thinking, allowed children to reproduce with this warped thinking. So I want you to consider yourself very lucky.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Amy Dumslowski says ex-boyfriend Brian Wilson owes for burning her face with a slice of pizza. Brian says the argument started when he saw Amy dancing with another man.
Now the ball is in your court, Mr. Wilson. Don't smile at me, because let me explain something to you. How old are you?
27.
27. I'm a few years older than you are.
You don't look
and
it.
You're very, very sweet, Mr. Wilson. It's not going to help you any. And you know how long I've been eating pizza? A lot longer than you have. I never knew a pizza to fly off a plate and hit somebody in the face. How many flying pizzas did you know in your years? Never.
0.
We never knew a flying pizza. So with that in mind, Mr. Wilson, let's go back to, you're in the bar with Miss Amy.
Right.
Both had a couple of beers. Now.
I saw her dancing with somebody on the dance floor. I didn't want to stand for it, so I left the bar.
So you saw her dancing with somebody?
Right. Supposedly it was just a friend, but, you know, I don't know that friend, so it makes me feel uncomfortable. So I left the bar. I'm walking down the street. She comes running up behind me, you know, hit me, trying to pull on my shirt. She actually ripped the shirt that I had underneath my button-up shirt.
Well, tell me what she said to you as she was pulling on your shirt.
What the is my problem? Why are you leaving? You know, so as I'm walking home, she's still pulling at me, you know, yelling, you know, because when she drinks and is under the influence of other drugs, you know, she's a live wire.
Was she under the influence of other drugs?
I say so.
What other drug?
Marijuana.
Did you see her smoking marijuana that day?
Yeah.
Were you smoking marijuana
No.
that day? But she was.
Right.
Okay, keep going.
So as we continue to the house, finally, you know, she gave up, you know, after my shirt's ripped. She goes back to the car.
So you don't know anything about hitting her in the face?
I didn't. She might have caught like some buttons from trying to pull on my shirt and me just defending myself to, you know, just so I can walk home and avoid the whole situation, because we could have fought if we really wanted to fight in the bar. Okay. You know, but that's the whole reason why I walked home, so I didn't have to do that.
Go ahead.
So then once we get home, I'm already home and sitting in the living room. She comes in and it continues again. She's not trying to talk it out or anything like that. She's yelling. You know, a little pushing, a little, you know, I got the pizza in my hand.
Now let's go through this slowly.
No problem.
Little pushing. How did the pushing get started?
Defense pushing. Like defense pushing, you know. When she talks to you here. She don't talk to you from a distance. You
so
know,
you're pushing her away from you.
Right, as I'm walking from the kitchen to the living room, back and forth. So finally I had the plate in my hand, and, you know, she's trying to, you know, tangle with me, and it accidentally hit her in the face.
I assume you felt very sorry when you found out she had been burned.
I drove her to the hospital the next day.
Is that right?
No. I called him when he was at work, and I said, I need to go to the hospital. And he said, well, come pick me up from work, and we can go to the hospital.
Had you stayed at your mother's that night?
Yes.
Who else lives in your mother's house?
My mom, my stepbrother, and my stepfather.
They couldn't take you to the hospital?
No, I was going to go by myself, and he said, I'll go with you, because he felt bad.
Why would you want the person who assaulted you to go with you to the hospital?
He said he would go with me.
And when you got to the hospital, what happened?
They looked at it, they said it looked really bad. They referred me to a plastic surgeon.
Did he just take you to the hospital and take you back to your mother's house?
I was driving, so I took him back to his house. We went and got the prescription filled.
So first you went and got the prescription filled?
Yes.
And then you drove him back to his house?
Mm-hmm.
What happened when you got back to your house?
Nothing. Everything was ordinary. It was just an ordinary day, watching TV, hanging out.
The two of you?
Yeah, making plans for the weekend.
What plans were you making for the weekend, Amy?
We weren't making plans for the weekend.
What were you doing that afternoon?
We were just talking, and he was telling me how sorry he was and that he would pay my bill for me, my hospital bill.
That takes 2 seconds. How long were you there?
Probably like an hour, 2 hours, not even.
She was there all day. Because I remember, because she had to put the ointment in my bathroom, and she had to put it on. So she even slept over.
She did?
Right. She had to put the ointment on at my house and get salt water and pour it on the burn, things like that. And she did that all at my house.
Amy, do you have any unreimbursed medical bills?
I have my medical bill right here.
How much was the medical bill?
$377.38.
How much do you owe on it?
The full amount, I haven't paid it because he said he was going to pay it.
Well, I think he should pay it. But you're suing him for $5,000.
Pain and suffering. Every time I look at I'm going to need plastic surgery. I haven't even went to the plastic surgeon and even got an amount estimated.
Well, then I can't help you with that, my dear. I can't help you with something that is speculative. What I don't understand is, if someone is frightened that someone is abusive and assaultive, they don't call them the next day to go to the hospital. They don't have them take them for the prescription when they have a sister and a mother and a stepfather and a brother and alternatives. Do you understand?
Yes, I understand that.
Good.
I was just calling him to tell him that I needed to go to the hospital, how severe it really was. That's the only reason why I called him, and he said, I'll go with you.
You don't call.
And
the only call you make is to the police. Did you do that?
No, because he has a son. I didn't want anything to happen.
Amy, he's going to pay your medical bill. You have a $377 medical bill. Your pain and suffering you're going to have to live with. I assume that you're not together anymore, is that right?
Not at all.
Very good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $377. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Obviously, yeah, he did push me into a tree.
Oh, that's not true.
I didn't fall into a tree.
She was drunk.
I wasn't drunk. 2 beers, come on.
Slipped and fell, I guess.
You don't hurt the people that you love.
Eat pizza, don't throw it.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Youngman versus Caffey. Step forward, please.
22-year-old emergency medical technician Thomas Youngman is suing his ex-girlfriend, 21-year-old bank teller Jacqueline Caffey, for the balance on a car and bank overdraft fees. Jacqueline claims Thomas paid off the car note without consulting her.
Mr. Youngman, Miss Caffey was your girlfriend for a while, and in 2003, according to your complaint, you were foolish enough to co-sign for a car loan for her.
Yes, ma'am.
And when you co-signed for the loan, it was her car. The car was titled in your name, is that right?
Yes.
And she agreed to make the payments on the car.
Yes, ma'am.
And she did make the payments on the car until when?
Until the car got totaled. There was one last payment to make after the insurance paid it off.
And how much was that one last payment?
$550.
Your complaint is that Ms. Caffrey decided not to make the last payment. You had already broken up at this point. And
Correct.
how long had you been apart?
We've been apart for almost a year and a month.
And you knew nothing about the car because it was her car and she was making the payments.
Correct.
After she totaled the car and stopped making the payments, they came after you because you were the co-signer on the car, and they took the money out of your bank account. How much did they take out?
$550.20-something cents.
Then can you explain why you're suing her for $2,000?
Because there were some late fees acquired with that, in the negative balance fees.
Okay. And how much were the negative balance fees?
$100.
Anything else?
My credit was damaged, so I figured the rest of it could be for that.
Okay. Now, Ms. Caffrey, you say you've paid enough, and he co-signed for the car, and therefore it was his responsibility. I'd like you to explain that to me.
He co-signed for it. I have the proof of it.
I know there's no question he co-signed for it.
He co-signed for a car loan, and I made every single payment. This was a $13,000 loan, and he paid $500, in late fees, $650. And he drove the car too when we were together.
You mean in 2003?
Yes.
So what you're saying is he drove the car in 2003, and therefore it was his responsibility to make the last payment.
I don't owe him anything. He paid.
Would you do me a favor and answer my question?
Yes.
I'll decide whether you owe him something or not. I'm trying to figure out your defense. Tell me what your defense is.
I do not owe him because he...
That's a conclusion. That's a legal conclusion that you do not owe him. So far, we have the following set of facts stipulated. He agreed to co-sign a loan on your promise that you would make the payments on the car. That fact is buttressed by the fact that you did, in fact, make payments on the car consistently even after the two of you were no longer together. You made the payments on the car consistently, which supports his statement that you promised to make the payments until you totaled the car. Then you stopped. There was still a payment owing, $550. Now I'd like your defense as to why you do not owe that $550.
I had called the bank over and over and tried to figure out how much I owed, and by the time I figured out how much was owed, because they kept telling me different numbers of how much was owed, and then she said, well, just hold off on the payment and we'll get back to you on it. So when I finally got the letter in the mail that I owed $550, he had already paid it. I didn't ask him to pay it. He had already chosen himself to go ahead and pay it.
They took it out of his bank account.
That's not what, when I asked her and he told me that they froze his account, that never happened.
I want to tell you something. Mr. Youngman,
Yes, ma'am.
you're going to get your money.
Okay.
You are also a very, very fortunate man. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Really lucky. You
thank
could have been married to this warped thinking, allowed children to reproduce with this warped thinking. So I want you to consider yourself very lucky. Okay?
Thank you.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $650.